Right, everyone. Hello. I hope you can hear me. Just let me know. Give us a shout out if you can hear me. And hello to everyone in the chat box. Hello, we've got Diego Rivera, Alan McVicker. Welcome. Lisa. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Oh, Lisa can hear me. Great. That's brilliant. How are you all? Diego Rivera's there. Alan McVicker. And Al McCall. Hello, Al. How are you? I'll just share this and then I'll just let people know I'm live. So Facebook. Hope they won't ban me from this. What's this? Oh, good grief! Hang on a sec. So I've got to keep my phone on because my little girl, my daughter, is messaging me. All right, so just bear that in mind. And Twitter, waiting for a few people to join us. There we are. This is called A Week in America live stream. Yeah. Hey, Paul Armstrong, how you doing? You all right? Denise Moore, greetings. Oh, it's nice to see you all. Glad you can all hear me. There's 17 people watching already. I've only been going for a minute. That's pretty good. Hope you're doing all right. Hi, Denise. You all right? Hope you've all had a happy St. Theo's Day. Oh, Matt. Hello, Matt. Matt Taylor from Brighton. How are you? Mr. King Arthur, I think your YouTube channel's called. How do you do? And we have Safety Man 460458. Hello. Rebecca McCoo. Hello, Rebecca. And the Cockmeister. Good evening. I'm glad this is about current events and not about Epstein. I'm sure Epstein will come back into it. Nick, hello, Nick, watching from Leicester. Hi. How are you all? Interesting times. No issue. Bojo's on the wrong team, but never mind. We fight on. Well, Lisa, I'm not sure that's completely fair. I mean, what he's done is bloody awful. I mean, maybe we can talk about that later. I've got a little bit of a lead off. Who knows? Maybe they threatened the baby. I don't know. But maybe he can come back because I don't believe what he's doing is malicious when it comes to the vaccines and things like that. But it is awful what he did. It's awful what you posted about the vaccines. It's just horrific. Oh, and Neil Desperandum, hello. Neil, are you Splendid Isolation? Are you the same person? Splendid Isolation on her Panama Radio. Michael Snow, hello. Paul, maybe that's a subject maybe I'll talk about later. About Belly. Hello, Legend Real. You're the same person, right? You are. Okay, I'll bear that in mind, Neil. I didn't know that. Of course, the problem with the internet is you never know who anyone is, do you? Hello, Zythantiops. Zythantiops is sort of, Lisa's got the details, but she posted saying that he sold himself at 8.8 billion to Bill Gates. Oh dear. Oh dear, Lisa, it's awful, isn't it? It's awful. Yeah. But Neil, I'm glad you introduced yourself because I know you, of course, from the Panama Radio chat box. Diego Rivera says George Floyd's a porn star. Yeah, I thought he looked familiar. Ooh, that just slipped out. Yeah. All right, and guys, I think we're 28 watching now. We'll just wait, see if anyone else is going to join us. David Schultz, greetings. How are you? Nice of you to come all the way from Maine. It must be earlier in the day where you are. Brian Clare, hello, Brian. How are you? I know Brian. Interestingly, I'm actually going to be on a radio show in a couple of weeks. It's starting 10 p.m. It's an American show, 10 p.m. Eastern, which means 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means it starts at 2 a.m. over here. I'm going to be so tired. Oh, Zythantiops. Is there a Mexico UFO? You in Brazil? Yeah, I was going to. Oh God, I got to get back onto that, haven't I? Yeah, I've Brazil. Zythantiops. I'll be doing an update on that very soon. I'm just waiting for a couple more reports to come out. Okay. So, hello, Safety Man. How are you? The thing about the Maget incident is I'm just waiting for. There are some updates on it, and I'm going to do. I'll do an update on that as soon as I can. Okay. but there has been some news. Neil says, could you pertain to what you were talking about before, the persona versus the real person? Sure. It's the persona is what you project to the world. It's how you want others to see you. And for the persona, the real person is what you are without those forces for social conformity, or even if it's just simply whatever you want other people to see you as. And the difference between the persona and the real person varies from individual to individual. But I know I've talked about this I think it was not in this St. Theo's Day, but it was in a previous St. Theo's Day video about a particular chap I used to serve alongside, and he had a very distinct persona, which I know was fake. I know he was putting on an act. It's I often wondered what he was like when he wasn't acting. I often used to wonder that. So Xanthiops, I'm going to write a book. I'm writing a book on something else. It's a fictional book called The Obscurati Chronicles. You can read 2 sample chapters on Ben's bookcase. I'm very well, thanks, Alan. Thanks for joining us, Alan. It's good to see you. And I think you're new here, aren't you? So welcome. Yeah. You know, Lisa, do you remember the guy in Canada who sued his own statute law identity? He managed to extract the tax it had paid. It was really hilarious. Anyway, I think we've got 35 watching now. So what I'll do now is I'll do my lead-off discussion. This is going to be quite a long show because there's a lot to talk about. I've got a lead-off prepared, and then because a lot has happened, an awful lot has happened. During that time, if you post comments, I won't reply to them myself. So if you address me, I won't reply during the time I'm reading the lead off, because otherwise I just get too many. What I'll do when I finish the lead off is I'll just go through and get rid of the trolls, should there be any, and then I'll start talking to you, and I'll start talking to you and taking your questions and comments. Okay, but anyway, there's a saying that a week is a long time in politics. And it certainly is. All I can say is that a week is a long time. Certainly a lot's happened in America. The United States, in particular, has had a very, very dramatic week. Slightly more than a week, I must admit. I don't want to be pedantic. It's actually 8 days. But there's been such enormous developments. This began last Thursday, yesterday week, when President Trump signed an executive order relating to internet censorship. Now, what happened was, I don't believe this is the source of why he did this, because he's not stupid. He knows what's going on. But he got fact-checked by Twitter. He posted this. He did the double tweet. He said this: there is no way, zero, that mail-in ballots will be anything less than substantially fraudulent. Mailboxes will be robbed. Ballots will be forged, and even illegally printed out and fraudulently signed. The governor of California is sending ballots to millions of people, anyone living in the state, no matter who they are or how they got there, will get one. That will be followed up with professionals telling all of these people, many of whom never have even thought of voting before, how and whom to vote. This will be a rigged election. No way. Now, what Trump's doing there, what he was tweeting about, if you don't follow him on Twitter, by the way, do it. You know, whatever you think of him, he's a really hilarious tweeter. He's suggesting that the deep state is planning electoral fraud. That's what he's really saying here. And he's planning electoral fraud because there's calls to make the next US presidential election in November a completely postal ballots only, because of the lingering threat of COVID-19. Even though this is November, it's months away, but they're still saying, yes, but people might get COVID-19 while they're standing in the queue, even if they're like 6 feet apart. You know, there's easy ways. You can just use a bit of hand sanitizer and get people to stand 6 feet apart, and all the other things they're doing. Of course, the stupidity of wearing masks and stuff like that. You know, but even by the standards of the lockdown, there's no need for postal ballots unless you want to commit electoral fraud, because when it comes to postal ballots, electoral fraud is a lot more difficult, a lot easier. I think Trump's concerns are legitimate. Check out Project Veritas and what they've been saying about this. And indeed, with the last election, 2016, they exposed a massive amount of electoral fraud. An attempt was made to crowbar Hillary Clinton into the White House by the deep state, which failed. Now, fact checking. I mean, I think a lot of people now. I don't know if you, Lisa. I'll leave it up to you whether you want to say anything about this. You can tell everyone else, but you told me a story earlier when we were talking privately, and you can say what you want about it. But I know you. All right, Lisa. Yeah, okay, I will. Thanks. Lisa herself is in Facebook jail because of Facebook's fact checker, and it was all to do with the masks. She made a post about. She put a post up about the validity of people being forced to wear these COVID-19 hijabs, as someone I know calls them. And Facebook has put she's got 3 days in Facebook jail for that. And I think that's horrible. I mean, what the post she put up was perfectly legitimate questioning. It's a perfectly legitimate point she was making. And rather than putting it out there and letting people look at it and see if it's true or false by discussion, they decided just to drop it and punish Lisa as a result. And this has happened to a lot of people. It's happened to me. I myself have been zucked. I can't on Facebook now. Actually, it's not me personally. It's actually the Hapanwo blogger pages, which is like the center of what I do of my online presence. No one, it's not just me. It's other people. Nobody can post Hapanwo. I've got to put. Hang on. I just got to make a note of something now. I've just reminded myself of something. One sec. I always have to do this every so often. Yeah, okay. Not just me. Blogger pages. And that's right. Just something I've got to put. I'm doing an update article on my banning. But yeah, no one can post blogger pages on Facebook. That is my blogger ones. That's Hapanwo. My own blogger pages now are banned from Facebook. Now, Paul has just raised an interesting point here, and I'm going to digress slightly because this is a really good thing, right? If they're now talking, as Michael Snow says, they're now mandatory on public transport. They will be from the 15th of this month, which is basically just 10 days away. And so what are you going to do? I mean, it is going to force some people to put face coverings on. This is revolting. I know people are. I know I was on like a webinar the other day, and people are furious about this. But I wonder if there's a way of turning it to our advantage. I mean, there's several ways you can do it. I mean, you could just refuse to use public transport and see if you can get by without it, or you could make face masks with subversive messages on. And I'm thinking about doing that and saying, Infowars.com or davidike.com or hapanwo.com or something like that, Yeah. Lisa, it's ridiculous what they did to you. She posted a mask box saying masks will not protect you from COVID-19, so they banned me. Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, I had this discussion with doctors at my hospital. You need to protect yourself from airborne virus particles. You need a particular type of mask. So you were absolutely right, Lisa. Anyway, and Neil said, you don't get if you're breathing through a fabric, you can actually suffer from oxygen depletion, chronic hypoxia. I used to have to wear paper surgical masks at the hospital, but only for an hour or two at the most at the time. But supposing I plan to go to Newcastle in early August to see Paul and lots of other people who live in that area. Well, I'll be on the coach for 8 hours. Ugh. Anyway, so I'm furious about what they did to Lisa. I'm furious about what they did to me, banning us like this. I mean, I'm not banned from Facebook, but I can't post any of my blogger pages. I've set up. What I've done is I'm duplicating all my blogger pages now on a WordPress site. And so I'm outwitting the Facebook censors that way. Maybe they'll get wise. Maybe they'll get wise to that, and they'll start banning my WordPress pages. If so, then I'm simply going to go and I'll set up another blog site somewhere else. But obviously, it is these particular websites they want to ban. It's not me. I know because other people have tried to share my pages, and they've been refused. Facebook has just said you can't share these. Now, I must point out, I don't object in principle to the notion of fact checkers. Fact checkers, that is somebody, well, in principle, that is some kind of system on a website that when you post something, will it'll immediately post say a pop-up or something like that, linking to some kind of piece of material contradicting what you just posted. I don't object to that because that's free speech. That's what it is. That's what Kevin Logan calls free speech. Yeah, so I don't object to that at all. That's what the rebutter thing is. I don't know if you've ever seen the rebutter. It's something devised by skeptics, which basically it's basically a plugin for your browser. So whenever you look at what Paul calls a woo-woo site, and Kevin Logan uses Kev Baker. Don't get those two mixed up. What Kev Baker uses, it immediately links you to a site critical of what you've just said. I don't have an objection to that. I don't even need it. I don't use rebutter. I automatically go to the skeptic sites to see what they say. I'm a member of Oxford Skeptics in the Pub. Rebutter. It's but-but-r. Look it up online. It's quite if you want to install. I don't install it, but you might want to. What I oppose about this fact checking system, firstly, is a fact checker doesn't just do that. Fact checker it commits censorship on social media, on Twitter and on Facebook. As we've just seen, President Trump has just been fact checked. So cool, which means basically his post has been placed in a limited state because he said something they don't agree with. They put in stuff which means people can't like it or repost it or retweet it or anything like that. Can't embed it. It's had all these different systems have been dropped from that particular post. That is censorship. That is making that post less visible because they disagree with it. I mean, they're putting all kinds of stuff up, contradicting it, saying it's wrong because the fact checker has decided. But if it was wrong, you wouldn't need to do that. If it was wrong, you could just let people see it, and they could look up the material. They could look up the contradictory material and make up their own minds. But they don't do. They don't let us make up our own minds. They treat us like a bunch of bloody kids. And the other thing I object to is the very name fact checker, because this implies some kind of intellectual supremacy over what it is checking. If you call something fact checker, it's like saying, well, we're making sure it's true. But what it's actually doing is all the fact checker does is, well, firstly, it commits censorship, which I object to. Secondly, it's called fact checker and it shouldn't be, because all it's really doing is delivering the user easy access to an alternative opinion that may or may not be a fact. What is or is not a fact cannot be decided by just simply giving something the name fact. Give it a name with the word fact in, and somehow it becomes true. Because if that was the case, then I could say, and I'll resort to my favorite Orwellian tradition here: 2 + 2 = 5, and that's a fact. I could say that. We've run it through fact check and found out that 2 + 2 = 5. If I did that, would therefore the entire universe change and the laws of reality change to make 2 + 2 = 5? And 2 + 2 would no longer anywhere in the universe equal 4. Aliens in the Andromeda Galaxy would be on their calculator they'd be going 2 + 2 = 5. Hang on, let me do that again. CE 2 + 2 = 5. Hang on a minute. I'm going to call the manufacturer. Excuse me, your calculator keeps saying 2 + 2 = 5. Well, sir, they're all doing that. It's facts are decided on by logical analysis, by research, and by honest discussion, and not by some social media corporation proclaiming that something they say is true because they say it is. Least of all, because they're not only just saying it's untrue, they're preventing people from seeing it. And Trump is absolutely right, and it's really good. It's really good that he tweeted this. It's very daring of him. I mean, it gets better. This story gets so much better. It really does. But he's absolutely right that she needs to be afraid about electoral fraud, because right now the deep state is panicking. The Illuminati are absolutely shitting themselves, to put it politely. The powers that were as Niall Murphy, Mr. Opaque Lens, calls it. I love that phrase. They're going to try desperately. They're going to try everything they can to avoid the same mistakes they made in 2016. They want to get their man or woman into power. It was a woman in 2016, it was Hillary Clinton. They have their own man now. They have a Hillary Clinton 2.0 this time round. And it is this really sleazy, brainless, feckless old man called Joe Biden. Now, he's there. He somehow has become the Democrats' nominee because basically they've got no one better. Bernie Sanders had a heart attack. Joe Buttigieg has gone back to judging booties. I've forgotten the names of the others. I've even forgotten their names. So this guy, Joe Biden, he was actually Obama's vice president. He is totally and utterly unelectable. His poll ratings are bumping along the bottom. And now in a fair ballot, Trump is going to thrash him hands down. So therefore, the Illuminati are taking steps to make sure this will not be a fair ballot. So what Trump did with his tweet, hopefully, will derail this subversion of democracy. And as I said, that the powers that were, they are absolutely desperate. And indeed, we're going to talk about exactly how desperate they have been. And then the following day, this was last Thursday. This is when it really kicked off, because last Thursday, that's the 28th of May, Trump signed an executive order. And I've read through it. It's a long document, but it's about repealing the Act, Article 230, which concerns the rights of websites on the internet. Now, there's different ways of interpreting this. I know some people claim this will. I was watching a video the other day claiming this will make internet censorship worse, but from what I've seen, I don't think it will. Now, what Trump has said in this executive order, I've read through the entire thing. It looks very positive to me. If anyone thinks differently, that's fine. I'm sure it's all going to come out, because the executive order is not the. You see, the executive order doesn't make things law. I mean, the whole U.S. system is designed to prevent one person having too much power. So obviously, it'll have to go through the Supreme Court and things like that. There's all kinds of other pros involving the Senate and the House of Representatives and things like that. But this is a massive, massive development. He says, as president, I have made clear my commitment to free and open debate on the internet. Online platforms are engaging in selective censorship that is harming our national discourse. Tens of thousands of Americans have reported, among other troubling behaviors, online platforms flagging content as inappropriate, even though it does not violate any stated terms of services, making unannounced and unexpected changes to company policies that have the effect of disfavoring certain viewpoints and deleting content and entire accounts with no warning, no rationale, and no recourse. Sound familiar? As a nation, we must foster and protect diverse viewpoints in today's digital communications environment, where all Americans can and should have a voice. We must seek transparency and accountability from online platforms and encourage standards and tools to protect and preserve the integrity and openness of American discourse and freedom of expression. These words will vastly increase Trump's chances of re-election, and they may even save the world, and that's not an exaggeration. Internet censorship has become one of the biggest civil rights issues of the last few years. This is going to do away. What it does, what Trump wants to do, he wants to do away with this loophole that YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and many others have been playing on. They've been exploiting. They've been sucking it dry for the last few years, since at least 2015, which is that they're neither a publisher nor a platform. I've talked about this before. They occupy this middle ground between the two, which means if they're a publisher, then they are legally accountable for what they publish. If they're a platform, then they're not. If they're a platform, they simply are allowed, the user becomes legally responsible for what they publish. And so essentially makes the platform exempt. And you think they like that? You think social media would like that, because it means they don't have to have an army of lawyers checking every single thing everyone posts. But of course they don't want that, because they don't have a pretext to commit censorship, to gag people. They're using this a liability, which they don't want to cast aside, as an excuse to suppress certain viewpoints. I mean, it's obviously, this is just the first step. It's not all going to change overnight, but this is thrilling that this has happened. It's vindicating all this stuff, all this dithering that Trump has been going through, saying, I'm monitoring the situation. That's now gone. And quite frankly, it's long overdue. I'm glad he's done something about it. It's about bloody time. So one glass of Mark Zuckerberg's tears coming up, I think. I'll just drag a juice for now. Oh my God, I'm watching my favorite hate follows, Kevin Logan and Christy Winters. I can't wait to see what they're going to make of this, because they're going to be burning. They're going to be freaking out about it. Kevin Logan is going on about, oh, freeze peach, and stuff like that. I mean, Christy Winters has turned into a little demon in the last few days because of everything that's happened. She's gone total woke skull. It's terrible. And I mean, I feel sorry for her, because she's so invested in this belief system. And I'll come to that in a minute. That's something I'm going to come to later. But anyway, what's going to happen is, once the platform becomes legally immune from any material users post, what are they going to do? I mean, they're going to have to go back to existing laws, and there are plenty of laws concerning people's responsibility, individual users' responsibility online. I'm not in favor of getting rid of the law about people making threats against other users. You know, the incitement to commit crimes, the creation of panic, the yelling fire in a crowded theater law. I'm not against those. Those are sensible laws. They existed long before all this happened. What I'm against is the fact that social media platforms are seeing themselves as arbiters and essentially filters of a distinct political position, which is kind of left of left center Guardianista kind of thing. They seem to be trying to insist that their service is only used for that. That's what I'm against. And that now is, well, they're not going to give up. I mean, they're going to try and find another reason now. I mean, I was watching an interesting video the other day where someone was suggesting that the latest terms of service change on YouTube, and that is the one concerning channels that are not profitable. These essentially have been created by the service YouTube, because they know what Trump has done has been coming, and they're now looking for another pretext to do the same thing, to get rid of people they don't like. So that's a bridge we'll cross when we come to it. But at the moment, this is massive, massive progress. And then, on the very same day, the very, very same day, President Trump terminated the US's relationship with the World Health Organization. And this is fantastic. This is just unbelievable. I mean, the balls on this guy is just incredible. And obviously, there are people looking after him. There are people behind him looking after him. There might have to be. Because the fact that he hasn't ended up like Kennedy, surely, I mean, I pray every day for his safety. I really do. Because he's a heroic figure in my view. And I pray every day for his safety, because he is in danger. But there must be a vast number of people who are on his side within the establishment, the people that QAnon talks about, and the people attached to QAnon. Yes, QAnon is real, but no, not everyone agrees with that. I know, but that's I've done an entire live stream on that. So basically, what this is about is that it's to do with what Trump believes is China having too much influence on the WHO. The World Health Organization, essentially, he sees as China becoming as having so much power over the WHO that basically the WHO has failed to hold Beijing accountable for the coronavirus pandemic. Now, the coronavirus is essentially a biological weapon in development. It probably isn't the final result, but it is a biological weapon. I don't believe it was deliberately released. I know some people think it was. I suspect it wasn't, because it all came from it all seemed to emerge from the laboratory where it's made. If it was a deliberate release, it would be released in somewhere else, somewhere away from where it was created, in different areas around the world. But the WHO's Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, I don't know what language that is, sorry if I mispronounced it, has promised a review of the response to the pandemic and defended its independence. Trump isn't having any of it. He said, "We will be today terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization and directing those funds to other global public health charities." So yeah, he's basically the money, which you see part of the membership of the WHO or its affiliation. The US is paying a vast amount of money to it, and Trump is just saying, "I'm fed up of paying this money to these people." He said, "China has instigated a global pandemic that has cost over 100,000 American lives." And it's true. I mean, the idea is that could, if it had been contained better, it wouldn't have spread across the world the way it has. The World Health Organization, certainly a little fact list here, founded in 1948, based in Geneva, Switzerland, the UN agency responsible for global public health. I mean, that is so Orwellian, isn't it? I mean, the Ministry of Truth, the Ministry of Love, the Ministry of Plenty, the Ministry of War, and the World Health Organization. Yeah, it's straight out of 1984. Do you remember in 1984, the Ministry of Plenty is basically responsible for the engineered famine in Oceania. The Ministry of Truth is responsible for creating media lies. The Ministry of Peace organizes the eternal global war that is continuous and never won or lost. The Ministry of Love is, of course, where they create hateful, tailor-made tortures for people, involving your own worst fears. And the Ministry of Health, of course, is about engineering disease for political purposes. It has 194 member states. Aims to promote health and keep the world safe and serve the vulnerable. Oh dear, you can almost smell it, can't you? Involves in vaccination campaigns, health emergencies, and supporting countries in primary care. Oh, do you remember, what's the name of that lady? I can't remember her name now. It'll come to me in a minute. But she basically sued them, funded by a combination of members' fees based on wealth and population and voluntary contributions. Well, they're not getting any more from the states, are they? I think that's 15 million a year they give them or something like that. They're not getting any more from them. What's the name of that lady? With the short hair. She's half Irish, half Austrian, and she took them to court, I remember. Does anyone remember her name? Nobody? I hate when I can't remember names. I'm not that old. Anyway, earlier in the month, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said, "Mr. Trump is trying to mislead the public and smear China and shift the blame for the US's own incompetent response." Oh yeah, of course, because Trump he's been blamed for this, hasn't he? Everything's been piled onto him when he's not done anything in the States that other nations have not done in terms of the lockdown. And I mean, he knows the lockdown is like in Britain, for example, it's totally excessive, and he knows that. Now we come to the EU. On Saturday, the EU issued a joint statement from its Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and Foreign Affairs Chief Joseph Borrell, who urged the US to think again. It said the WHO fight pandemics effectively. Yeah. We urge the US to reconsider its announced decision. Germany's health minister Jens Spahn also criticized the move, saying he's got a tweet here, actually. I'll read the whole tweet out. "This is a disappointing backlash for the international health movement. If the WHO shall make any difference for the future, it needs to reform, and the EU must take a leading role and engage more financially. That is one of our BMG priorities for our EU presidency. Gott in Himmel! Oh, yeah. Did anyone take a screenshot there? I hope not. Anyway, what followed immediately, now this I don't think this is a coincidence, because the very next day there was a tragedy. A man from Minneapolis, USA, called George Floyd was arrested, and after he was subdued and he was handcuffed, one of the officers placed his knee on Floyd's neck, as in like a it's supposedly to like keep them from moving around. Mr. Floyd protests that he couldn't breathe. He said several times, "I can't breathe properly." But the policeman stayed there for more than 8 minutes, and by that time he was throttled. And there was a huge street protest in the city. At first it was peaceful, people just carrying placards, but then it's since then erupted into the worst riots the USA has seen since the 1960s. Over 7,000 people have been arrested. There's been several $1 billion worth of damage that's been done. And it's spread across the world. I mean, there was a very unpleasant riot in London, I think it was the day before yesterday. Now, what's obvious here is that these riots are of such a scale, such a severity, and coordinated. This means they are highly organized, and that the killing of George Floyd is not the real reason. It's actually just the trigger event. In fact, I think it's just the excuse, because it's all to do with Antifa. And the various, now Antifa actually doesn't refer to an actual organization. It's just an umbrella term to describe a number of organizations that have been around for about 100 years in some cases. But these are organized and they are funded by major international power brokers, people like George Soros, the Clinton Foundation, etc. Now, what they do is they incite people. I mean, not everyone who is rioting is a member of any of these organizations. But it's very easy to incite people doing this. I mean, the government have top psychologists through the Tavistock Institute, for the Stanford Research Institute, through Common Purpose, who actually study the way people behave in order to control them better. And if you want to start a riot, it's actually not difficult. I was watching a TV show actually about these psychologists, and it's not been repeated actually. I think they don't want people to see it anymore. But they were watching like an aerial footage from a helicopter of an incident in Northern Ireland in the 80s, where some policemen were kidnapped and lynched by a mob. They were basically killed by a mob, a gang, a riot. They were dragged out of their police cars and killed by these basically thugs. And there was a long discussion on watching every single person in that huge crowd about what they did, about who the leaders, they seem to follow certain leaders and things like that. And it must have occurred to them that if they get certain people in certain positions, others will follow. Now, in the 90s, a riot broke out where I was living, Oxford. It was actually close to where I was living at the time. I remember it well. And it's a sad fact, but when you have a gunshot, certain people are particularly vulnerable to this sort of thing. And that is poor people, the jobless, mostly young men, and people who are suffering from terrible boredom, which is what unemployment delivers. Being unemployed is horrible, actually, especially for a man. It's very, very boring. Or some of them were like at school and they're heading for inevitable failure at school. The riot was just an opportunity to break the monotony. It was an opportunity to feel that something's happening in their lives. Because I used to live close to these people. They're not bad guys, a lot of them. They seem almost not to know what they were doing. And the looting, again, is opportunist. I mean, if someone smashed, the looting happens because of course some of these riots are vandalizing shops, and when these shops are vandalized, people just go in there and they take what they can. It's a lot of it's just a thrill factor. I mean, there was one guy in Oxford. The riot in Oxford was centered around joyriding. This is where people used to steal cars and they used to drive them recklessly. Now, one kid I know, he was a 13-year-old boy. He was the son of a friend of mine. He walked right across the city in the dead of night to where the riots were taking place. He just went along to watch, but he ended up taking part. It's pretty clear that the riot. I mean, the riots are not about justice for George Floyd. It's not about what happened to him. This act of police brutality, which I talked about. I talked about in my Slackster video about how police brutality is such a terrible thing, and how it is becoming more and more common. The rioters have attacked all kinds. They've attacked police stations, but they also attacked houses. They've attacked shops. They've attacked offices. It's just wanton destruction. And I mean, George Floyd's own brother has appealed for calm. I mean, there was a horrible video actually where a homeless man is attacked by the mobs, and they burn his mattress that he sleeps on. He sleeps underneath a bridge on his mattress, and they burnt it. They burnt it in front of him. Yet, despite all this, the rioters are always referred to as protesters. The media only ever calls them protesters. They don't use the word rioters. Now, if you watch InfoWars on BitChute, because it's banned from, Alex Jones is now banned from YouTube, but you can get him on BitChute. And he did a really great video the other day. It's 45 minutes long, where he uncovers how the various organizations attached to Antifa have a massive amount of funding from state and corporate actors. So if these global riots have been orchestrated as a psychological warfare attack, why now? What for? I think it's retaliation. I suspect it's retaliation for what Trump has done with the WHO and the internet censorship. I can't prove that, but it just seems an incredible coincidence that these things have broken out just afterwards. And I also know that the tweet Trump gave about warning people about electoral fraud, this has really scared them. This has really made them desperate. This is an attempt to bring Trump down. And it has other purposes as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. But now there's one theory going around that the whole thing was basically a sham. Now, some people have said that George Floyd was actually, they took part in some kind of fake attack and a fake killing. And I don't know. I know these posts have actually been removed from Facebook as well, where this is discussed. Derek Chauvin, the officer who killed Floyd, and George Floyd himself, they knew each other. You see, they both worked part-time as bouncers at a nightclub. I don't know if this is true or not. Because the theory is it's rather like the Manchester bombing that the Rich Planet TV program has exposed. I don't know that. I don't have an answer to that. But either way, it doesn't matter. because it doesn't matter because the effect is the same. It's been exploited. It's been used. Trump has handled this very well. He's taken a bold line. He stated outright that the riots have nothing to do with George Floyd's murder, and he's willing to use lawful force to restore the peace. He hasn't ruled out sending in the military. Something doesn't seem going to happen now because these things are kind of dying down. But importantly, he also denounced Antifa as a terrorist organization. Now, it'd be more accurate to say that the various organizations under the umbrella term Antifa could be described as terrorist organizations. Of course, each one will need to be designated as such independently. But I don't see why that's controversial, because their methods fit in with the definition of terrorism. That is, you use violence, especially violence geared against innocent bystanders, to mold public opinion. It's basically the use of terror to influence politics. That's what they're doing. That is what they are doing. And of course, there's a deeper part of this, and this has come out later. It's actually come out while the riots have been dying down. And this is the cultural Marxist element to this whole thing, which is very disturbing indeed. And you've seen people, what they call it, taking a knee, which means to kneel down, sometimes on one knee, sometimes on both. And I've seen videos of large numbers of people, all white people, kneeling down. And this is supposedly an act of solidarity, but that they make it very clear. Black Lives Matter, this organization, which is It's one of these funded, controlled organisations, which had apparently bricks were delivered before the riot broke out. Builders' bricks were delivered and kept to be used as weapons and things like that. See how highly organised it was. They've said that this is about people denouncing white privilege. Now, this takes us into the realms of white guilt. Now, this is a really horrible thing. It's a really horrible psychological warfare attack they're putting on people. And it takes many forms. It's like feminism. It's a part of this general cultural Marxist psychological warfare attack on us. But there's this horrible video I've seen where there's this young woman, a small young woman. She's walking on the street. There's not many other people around, and this bloke goes up to her. You could hear there's other guys around. They go, "Excuse me," and she goes, "What?" She looks frightened because she's on her own. I mean, you can see by the camera angle, this bloke's a lot bigger than her. Could you just get down on your? We're with Black Lives Matter, and we want you to get down on your knees because you have white privilege. And of course, they deliberately picked on a vulnerable person to get this video. Of course, she does. She gets down on her knees. I mean, I wouldn't. I'd refuse. I'd say, no, I won't do that. I don't have white privilege. There's no such thing as white privilege. It's a complete myth. It's a delusion created by a bunch of people who, by their own admission, want to take over the world by controlling our minds. So, no, I won't get down on my knees. But then I'm a big, ugly ex-hospital porter, aren't I? She's just a young woman, quite small in stature, walking on her own down an empty street. What else could she do? And that's why these bastards picked on her. I mean, it's getting to the point now where they're trying. I feel there's a state of war in a sense, because how do you define war? And of course, shooting, violence, of course, is a part of warfare. But maybe it can be defined where dialogue breaks down, discussion breaks down, and people just go out to try and get what they want, and sod whatever happens. And I mean, that seems to be the situation we're in now. I believe that this is essentially like warfare in the sense that, and it has been since the Brexit referendum. I mean, the Brexit situation has taught me an awful lot. It's taught me about the apathy of many people, but also the sheer wickedness of so many people. Just not people who are malevolent, but just people who are they're blinkered and they are uncaring. I mean, the whole Ramona campaign has been based around, well, sod the referendum, we want to have our way. And when you say to these people, I know because I've tried, because we're talking about members of my family here. When you say, well, look, it's not what you're saying is not true and it's not fair, their response is, so what if it's not true? So what if it's not fair? It doesn't matter. I think that's what's meant by clown world, where you say, well, no one cares what's true or not. And when people say it's not fair, who cares if it's fair or not? I mean, that is an act of war. When you say, I'm going to do this and I don't care if it's fair or not, that's an act of war, because it leaves people who do care what's fair or not no alternative but to defend ourselves in the same way. So this makes me feel really downhearted about what's happening. Although, of course, there's reason to be hopeful here, and that is that Trump is still around. Trump is still in office. He hasn't been removed. There's been attempts to remove him, the impeachment and things like that. Deep state have done everything they can so far to get rid of him. The fact that he has endured is a very good sign. It's very hopeful. And what's happened with these riots could simply be death throes. It could be the deep state getting desperate and lashing out, and it hasn't actually affected his popularity. Trump has not been blamed for this, just like he hasn't been blamed for the coronavirus. Of course, there's an economic slump now because of it. And yeah, I mean, that's inevitable. I mean, if you're going to shut down shops and reduce buses to a skeleton schedule and stop people from doing all they normally do, of course you're going to get an economic recession. But think about the economy, and people say, well, Trump's going to lose because the economy's bad. Most people regard the economy basically as like the weather. It's when recessions happen. How many people honestly know why they happen? I mean, economists always come up on TV and they give theories and things like that. But it's like it seems to be very, very economics is a very complicated thing, and very few people understand what they're talking about. And generally, they just see it as, well, it's just something that happens. We go through the cycle. Like one day it's sunny, One day it's raining. One day we have like a boom, and we have a boom in the economy, and the other day we have a recession, we have unemployment and things like that. So it's regarded almost as something, a force of nature. However, of course, the leader always gets blamed. The government always gets blamed when that happens, even though it's paradoxically, even though people regard it as a force of nature, the government always have to take the blame for that. But in this case, we know what's causing it. It's obvious what's causing it. And unless someone can actually prove that, unless the vast numbers of people blame Trump for what's happened with the COVID-19 pandemic, there's not actually going to be any way that this is going to affect his popularity. I'm never going to try, but it's not going to work. Now I'm just going to de-troll for a moment, because I just want to get through. I just want to de-troll, and then I will. And then I've got one more topic I want to go. I say this is going to be a long show. It's a long lead off, and we're going for nearly an hour already. But so just going to see who's here. Hello, Stiltskin. How are you? I'll say hello to people who just joined since I started. Legend Real, hello. But I don't have time to. I'm afraid I don't have time to read everyone's message. I'm sorry about that. Hello, Hugo. How are you? How are you, Hugo? Nice to see you. And anyone else who's there? Zaitan Chops, can you repeat? Anyone who's left me a question is going to have to repeat it. I'm sorry. Hello, Bowels of Death. That's a good name. Stephen Truthseeker, greetings. Onslow, hello. Crossman, welcome. I think we're all right for that. Okay, I thought Diego Rivera would have some strong opinions on the role of Trump in this movement. I know that, but I'll come on to that in a minute. As I said, I can't address questions now because but Diego Rivera, obviously, I don't agree with you. We've been through this before. I'm sorry. Yeah, I've because of time constraints, I'm going to have to delete some of the comments held for review. I'm sorry about that, but if I do, I'll just be here until 2 in the morning. Otherwise, I'm sorry. Hello, Lise. Right. Okay. So there's just one more. That's not all that happened. I mean, this is what's happened is just was incredible. Even that on its own would be incredible. That's not the only thing that has happened. Something's happened in terms of space exploration, which could change everything. Now, it's a mission has been launched called Crew Dragon Demo 2, which is a rather not terribly exciting name, rather sort of prosaic name for a very unusual space flight. It's the first attempt ever to launch. First, there was an attempt on the 27th of May, which was aborted due to bad weather. But then it was then took off again. It finally successfully launched on the 31st, so on the 30th, and at 3:22 p.m. EDT, Eastern, 1922 UTC. That's Greenwich Mean Time. I've got to apologise actually for putting the wrong time in the notice. I put in the notice Greenwich Mean. I meant British Summer Time. I did put in like a correction pinned comment. But this was a SpaceX manned capsule. The SpaceX is a manned craft with astronauts aboard. That is Doug and Bob, Douglas Hurley and Robert Benken, two veteran astronauts from the space shuttle, from NASA space shuttle missions. This is the first time Americans have been launched on an American, by NASA, since 2013, when the last space shuttle went out, the last ever space shuttle mission. This was a joint NASA SpaceX operation, and the rocket soft docked with the ISS on the 31st of May. That is the day before St. Theo's Day, of course, 1416 UTC. 10 million people watched the launch. 150 people gathered at the Space Coast. That's the area around Cape Kennedy where people always gather to watch rocket launches. And the Crew Dragon capsule was named Endeavour by the astronauts after the space shuttle Endeavour. Now, what's significant about this is it essentially is the use of, rather than the state itself controlling space travel, the use of cooperative private actors assisting them. SpaceX, of course, is a company owned by Elon Musk, the guy who makes Tesla cars, which is a bit of an ironic name, I think, considering his the fact that you know about the secret space program and everything that goes with that. Why is it that we're still going up in space in these rockets? I mean, I love rockets; they're great, wonderful, exciting things, but they're obsolete technology. They're dangerous, they're inefficient, and they're useless for the purposes of space exploration. The best they've ever done is they've managed to get some people into low Earth orbit. No, they didn't go to the moon. I've covered that on other videos, my Apollo Detectives videos. They have managed to get unmanned probes to various parts of the solar system and beyond, but that's nothing compared to what the secret space program has done. So this is rather like what happened with the Wilson memo. You know, when Admiral Wilson, Liberace's just started. Sorry, guys. When Admiral Wilson had that strange meeting with that guy, I discussed this in my UFO disclosure video, and he himself, as deputy director of naval intelligence, sitting on deputy director of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the intelligence side, decided to get to the bottom of the UFO cover-up, and he was saying, "No, none of your business, I'm afraid. You don't have a need to know." And he ended up finding out that basically there's a private company involved with UFO research now. He was given a list of people. He was given a list of personnel, and there were very few military titles. There were very few names he recognized. There was just basically unknown people working for private corporations, which of course that matches what Bob Lazar was talking about. So what happened this week with the SpaceX mission is very interesting, because it means essentially it's another example of how cooperative private organizations are now involved in space research. Okay, guys, I'm just going to go to I'll go back to the chat now. Okay, so that's the lead off over with. Okay, I'm just trying. I can see these right. David Schultz says if Trump had the cojones, he could sign or issue the antitrust law Sherman Act of 1890 to break up Google, Facebook, Twitter, and Amazon. We never know. I'm sure, David. I'm sure he wants to do a lot more than he can do right now. There's an awful lot of things he wants to do and can't. We see the same thing with Boris. Lisa's talking to Paula. Splendid Isolation says these cyberbullies can kiss my lily white up. Well said, Splendid. Well said. Lisa, I will never have a vaccination either. I will not. It's like, you know, if I'd rather someone was honest enough to say, Ben, we want to give you cancer viruses? Would you like these cancer viruses in your bodies? That nothing will happen to you immediately, but years down the line you could get some rare form of cancer or something else, like Dr. Len Horowitz talks about. I'd feel more honest then. I mean, obviously I'd say no, but when someone says this is just to protect you from some virus, you don't know what's in it. You don't know, and the doctor and nurse giving you the injection doesn't know what's in it. According to the American War College, Paul Armstrong, and I hope you're listening, the American War College issued a statement in 1970 50 years ago, saying quite clearly that the complex, they were moving away from crude biological warfare, battlefield, normal battlefield infantry, nuclear weapons, things like that, and moving into sophisticated biological warfare, and that the perfect weapons delivery system for a biological warfare attack would be a covert vaccination campaign. Oh, we know. Okay, I'm going to go up a little bit. Where are we? I've just flicked to the bottom. Rebecca McCoo says, Lisa, my own law as well. Do no harm, but take no shit. Very well. That's right. Rebecca, are you referring? You watched the launch and the docking. You got bored. Well, it did take a long time. I mean, the original live stream was 10 hours. There is a highlights version you can watch. I actually found it very interesting. I did. I always love things like that. 69 Phuket. How did they get through the plexiglass? What do you mean, Phuket? Hello, Phuket. By the way, Stephen says it's a full moon. It is. Can you see the penumbral shadow? It's penumbral eclipse. The shadow of the Earth. I can't. It's cloudy here. I can't see it. But David Schultz asked about Starlink. Yeah, and Splendid Isolation says, have you guys seen Starlink fly over? Again, it's something I've not seen. I've never had a chance to watch them. I'm sure we will get another chance at some point. I mean, I think the reason Musk put those up there is you can see it's primarily for show. It's for publicity. Splendid Iceland saying, my ex-girlfriend watches them fly over religiously. Oh, man, yeah. I hope you're not still feeling melancholy, Splendid. I really proselytizing Orthodox Pentecostal trans Rabbit says that Bob Lazar is a fantasist. No, he's not, Rabbit. No, he's not. We've had this discussion before, haven't we? He's not a fantasist. I think now I've wavered on this. I've looked into it, both sides of this. I really have done an effort to look at both sides of the story in this. I really have. I don't think he is. I don't think he's a fantasist. Rebecca says, I managed to get the space app again. Rebecca, there are several apps you can get. I mean, there's the ISS tracker for the International Space Station. There's various other apps you can do for spotting all kinds of things in orbit. Yeah. Lisa says, Trump is doing much, but at least he ain't sold out for 8.8 million. I know, Lisa. That's disappointing that Boris has done that. Maybe they threatened the baby. I don't know. This is the problem, you see, because when people have families and things like that, there's a limit to how much they can do. I mean, they don't have complete control. The Illuminati deep state still has its tentacles into the world. It still does. Matt Taylor says, would you bet your life on the claim that man didn't go to the moon? Oh, bad. If someone came up to me, I mean, firstly, I think people have been to the moon, but they've been to the moon with the secret space program. I think if people said the Apollo program, I think that'd be a pretty safe bet. Obviously, the consequences of being wrong, however unlikely, are pretty extreme. So, I mean, I don't think if someone won't take that offer up, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean that they don't have the convictions. Do you know what I mean? There may be many things that you yourself feel quite certain that some things are true, but if someone says, well, would you bet your life in it? You may well shy away from going to that extreme. Rabbit says, Ben always seems to fall victims to fantasists and con artists. Is he really that gullible? There's no argument there, Rabbit. Which fantasist and con artist do you mean? Why do you think I'm falling victim to them? In what way are they fantasists and con artists? You need to explain. For example, Bob Lazar. Why do you think he's a fantasist and a con artist? And if I can't answer, if I don't have time to give you a full answer in this live stream, then please leave a comment under the video, under the recording, and I'll get back to you on that. But I have looked at both sides in this. Am I really that gullible? That's rhetoric. There's no argument there. I could say to you, Rabbit always seems to fall victim to these people who say that 2 + 2 = 4. Is he really that gullible? Doesn't he know that 2 + 2 = 5? If I said that, Rabbit, would that mean 2 + 2 therefore equals 5? Would it? Because if the answer is no, then I'm afraid I proved my point, haven't I? Lisa, the cancer viruses and nanoparticles. I do recommend, if you've not seen it already, In Lies We Trust, the Hollywood CIA and Bioterrorism by Dr. Len Horowitz. It's a long documentary, over 3 hours, but I'll tell you what, it's worth it. It really is worth it. Rabbit says it's probably a good idea that Ben doesn't work in the health services any longer. Well, you know, I agree with you on that, but for different reasons. But you think saying I'm a liability, and people said that about Colin, saying, "Oh, Colin works for an airline. I wouldn't feel safe being on an aircraft if Colin was working for them." How ridiculous is that? You know, that's why Colin never says which airline it is, because, of course, we know why, isn't it? It's obvious. Splendid Isolation says Lazar hasn't been disproven. No, he hasn't. Exactly, Splendid. What I find highly interesting is that the Los Alamos denied he ever worked there until his name was uncovered in an internal phone book. So who is lying? Correct. Also, he's got several other pieces of documentation, and there's this. Not least, he has what appears to be a payslip, specifically linking him to a classified operation, something called the Department of Naval Intelligence. And there's coding on this particular payslip, what is a tax return or something, which shows quite clearly that he is that is a top secret assignment. So that needs to be explained. That's never been explained. Of course, he's got his detractors, and it's always there's certain people who like being negative about people for the sake of being negative, such as Alien Scientist. I mean, he's against Lazar, but he's against everyone, isn't he? I mean, he's such a miserable sod. He's a joyless, really bitter little git. He really is, and he's just against everyone. But there's others who put, like Stanton Friedman, who put together a more coherent case. But again, I've looked at what Stanton has said, and well, he's gone now. So the late great Stanton Friedman is no more, unfortunately, and the ufology will never be the same again. But he never changed his mind on Lazar, which was a shame because I think he got it wrong about Lazar. Lisa, good luck with trying to rid yourself of the nano crap techno. Definitely, yeah. 69 Phuket, thank you. He says Ben's a smart dude. Diego Rivera says George Floyd was a porn actor. He called him Big Floyd. We'll see. Well, you know, I mean, if he is still alive and you see him, if you look at those sorts of videos online, you might see him again. I don't know, but I mean, whether he is or not, I mean, well, whatever he was, I mean, what was done to him was murder. It was an act of police brutality, and it was disgraceful. If he's whether he is or whether it is a staged event like the Manchester Arena attack, the effect is the same. The Soros-funded organizations have used it to create a global disorder for the sake of trying to undermine the rebellion against the deep state. Oh, it's interesting about the nanoparticles, Lisa. I don't know much. I've looked into a bit of that. I mean, Sophia Smallstorm talks a lot about that. It ties into chemtrail and that. Rabbit says Lazar offers no proof to disprove. Bob Lazar cannot prove his case because we can't go to S4 and check to see if what he said was there is there. We can't prove anything he comes across. We do have to rely on his word a lot, but he has a lot of information that he provided. For example, the fact that he says that there was cover-ups of him working at Los Alamos and things like that. And as Splendid Isolation has said, those cover-ups appear to be valid because of documents that he owns, old documents which he's kept. Now that has to be explained by those who say he's lying and he's just making it up. Crossman says, are there no experts checking vaccines we can trust? From what I see, especially when a vaccine campaign is rushed the way this one is, and in fact, if the vaccine comes out very quickly, you've got to conclude possibly it was in development before the COVID-19 pandemic, which makes you wonder how that's possible. Really, what's kind of regulation? I mean, there's the Department of Health. I know there's the various institutions in various nations which are basically regulators of the healthcare system. But really, they contract these pharmaceutical companies that are making a massive amount of money. This is the biggest payday Big Pharma will ever have had, and they just wheel these things out. And I mean, it's getting something inside them is very easy. I mean, Dr. Len Horowitz has shown that. Grossman, do watch Horowitz's film, please do. Somebody says they've got to go. Who's that? So it's flicked to the bottom. Um, 69 Phuket. See you then. See you, 69. Thanks very much. Rebecca says, yes, I must get back. Also watched the moon landing. I was 15. 69 fed flat Earth, Ben, not so smart. What do you mean, Phuket? You say you announce you're leaving and you come back to say something about the flat Earth. You're teasing me, aren't you, Phuket? You really are. Please do. I've done an entire video about the flat. Rebecca, thanks very much. Good, you check it out. Stephen, no one else is reporting buffering, so maybe it is at your end. I hope it improves. Obviously, like the buffering problem doesn't seem to be an issue. I mean, what I'm going to do is this is my existing webcam. I just had a new webcam just arrived, and I'm going to do a test. I'll do a test live stream of it at some point, probably next week sometime, or maybe the weekend if I've got time. Lisa says, I do get is Ben. The whole world rides off blackmail and bad doings, just as well there is light. Huh? Yes, it is just as well, Lisa. There is light, and there is hope, and we live sadly in a world where it's almost like being in the Matrix, where it's like that very chilling scene where Morpheus and Neo are walking down the city street, simulate city street, and he says, "You're looking at the woman in the red dress. Look at her again." And it's like this. It's old Agent Smith, isn't it? This woman in the red dress turns into Agent Smith. And he said most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. They're so dependent on the system, they'll fight to protect it. This makes them our enemies, whether we like it or not. Whether we feel any animus towards them or not, they're still our enemies because of their behavior. It's not a judgment on them. It's not a hatred of them or a desire to destroy them. It's just the practicalities of the fact that they are behaving in a hostile way towards us, either through their own malice, which is the case, unfortunately, of a lot of the Ramonas. Very often it's simply just apathy. It's simply just going along to get along, and that's very sad. It's very sad, and that has been a terrible lesson I've had to learn in the last few years. The Dalai Lapa. What a great name. The Dalai Lapa says, good evening, my fellow truth juicers. Hello, Dalai. How are you? Stephen Truthseeker says there's planet alignments tonight. That's interesting, Stephen, because there is a penumbral lunar eclipse, and I don't know exactly what that means in terms of astrology. Anyway, guys, do you mind if I take a quick break? I'll stay online, play amongst yourselves. I'm just going to nip out for a few seconds. You can listen. I'll leave the mic on so you can enjoy Liberace. See you in a sec. Okay, hey guys, I'm back. Just 1 second. Let me just do this. Right. I'm just rearranging mine. I'm going to get rid of these bloody notes. Hang on a second. I'm just moving them from one document to another, so it saves me from doing it later. I hope you're all right. Cut. Paste. Right. Hope you're doing okay. I've got one of these. I was going to do this later, but I thought, what the hell? I'm going to break a rule. So cheers, anyone who's got, if you're drinking. Oh no, it's. I think I've overdone it with the chilling a bit. I chilled it, but I think it's Hock, which is a lovely German white wine. I was going to have this later, but I've overdone it with the chill. I've been chilling it in the fridge, but I've slightly over chilled it, and it's icy. It's not complete. Oh, it's not completely ice. There's something in it. It's not all ice, but it's. Oh damn! Look, there's a lot of ice in there. Oh, go on, hang on. I put it. You know what? I put it on the bloody top shelf. That was it. I put it on the top shelf, under the friggin' where the ice box is, just underneath it. Oh dear, you silly sod, Ben. You silly sod. So we basically got a Hock slush puppy. Well, it'll melt in a minute. It'll melt. Just give it a couple of minutes to melt. Hang on, I'll see if I can pour any of it out. It's very well chilled. I hope you like your wine chilled. There we are. It's coming out a bit. There we are. Hope you like your. I do like chilled wine, so that's it. Oh, got a few drops there. Have to wait for it to melt for a minute, but I've got a little bit there. Silly me. Also remember not to over chill my wine next time. Cheers. There's a little bit in there. I'm breaking a rule. I don't normally drink alcohol when I'm doing these shows, but what the hell? Who cares? Rabbit says Ben is feeling particularly paranoid today. Am I? I don't think I am. I'm not feeling paranoid. I'm not paranoid at all. It's just some people are out to get me. That's all. Splendid Isolation says Pop T and others have now come forward to confirm they work with Lazar. Who's Pop T? Oh, I think I know what you mean. Remind me just. Oh God, what's his name? Yeah. Bit by bit, his story's being confirmed, not just proven. I think so. Splendid Isolation. Diego Rivera, Trump actor, Zionist puppet. No, he's not. No, he's not. We've been through that, haven't we, Rabbit? Sorry, Diego Rivera. We have, haven't we? Stephen says solar flares interruption. Well, according to Space Weather, if you listen to a Panwo show, there have been no solar flares for quite a long time. Steve Palm, hello Steve, how are you? Starlink, just for let's flick to the bottom. Hang on, this keeps flicking to the bottom every time. Oh, where are we? Starlink, just publicity, lol. It's going to provide global internet and be very profitable. More lunches yesterday, bringing in a total more. Sorry, I think you mean launches, not lunches. Launches, bringing the total to 422. All right, okay. Well, it's not just for publicity. All right, Steve, it's not just for publicity, but obviously it is something visible in the sky in space, and that's obviously going to have the kind of publicity angle to it, and that's fine. I mean, it's providing internet service. I know apparently there's several places that don't get a very good connection, and these satellites are helping them. So that's pretty good. Well, I'll keep a lookout for them anyway. The Dalai Lama said, "I've been channeling his gingerness, Donald Trump, for the past week." You can report that everything has gone nips up. Oh, have you? Is that right, Dalai? Oh dear. But is this the sort of like higher self of Donald Trump? Donnie Trump, because you don't have to channel Trumpy. You can actually write to him on Twitter or something. Yeah. Rabbit says, "You haven't proved anything, Ben. You never do. Whenever anyone points out the massive holes in your silly nonsense you just pretend you don't understand. That's not fair at all, Rabbit. You know, you're starting to sound like Steve Mumbling. Do you know that? I'll give you a Steve Mumbling voice if you keep doing that. It's oh, I see. Pop T, proselytizing Orthodox Pentecostal trans Rabbit. Oh, I understand now. Yeah. So, sorry, Splendid. That's him. Yeah, but I don't believe that's fair when someone points out what you call massive holes in my what you call my silly nonsense, and I just pretend I don't understand. That doesn't really match with what is the reality, is it? Because what I do is instead I make 9-hour comment reply videos. Now that's not pretending I don't understand. That is addressing the points people make and going to a lot of efforts for that. Diego says he's not dead. He worked with Chauvin for 19 years. That's right. Derek Chauvin and George Floyd didn't know each other. That seems an odd coincidence, doesn't it? Incidentally, you guys, I don't know if any of you are members of. It's actually a private meeting, so I can't just invite anyone. But if you're members of the London UFOs and Alternative Group, I'm doing a talk for them tomorrow at 3 p.m. So you might get. They may let you in. I don't know. Lisa says we're completely full of nanoparticles causing Morgellons. Yeah. Just waiting to be turned on with vaccines and 5G. We can fight against it. That's true, Lisa. In fact, Morgellons is actually a symptom of your body rejecting the nanoparticles. I mean, I don't know if you've seen Sophia Smallstorm's lecture on Morgellons and chemtrails. Very interesting indeed. Splendid. Is Starlink 5G? Oh, dear. I wonder if Caroline Stevens has covered that. I don't know. Rabbit says, documents from a fantasist must be true. Oh, that's Rabbit. That's raising the bar, don't you think? Don't you think that's raising the bar? I mean, if but Lazar didn't have those documents, what would you be saying? He's got no documents. He provides these documents. Oh, they're documents from a fantasist. Well, that's an ad hominem attack, and that's a raising the bar fallacy. So 2 fallacies there from Rabbit, yeah, in the same single sentence comment. That's quite something. The Dalai Lama says has been detoxing with dandelion and burdock. Oh, right. I had some of that, but it's like a cordial you put with water. I don't know if that's the same thing. Diego Rivera says Chauvin name is Cohen. I don't know. It sounds French, actually. Diego Rivera says it's the equivalent of the English Cohen. You work it out. Well, if you're implying what I think you are, I think you're wrong. I've done an entire video about that, which you know very well. But I don't think there's a connection between the two. I think Chauvin it sounds like, you have like chauvinist. It's related to that. It's French. Lisa says, I only have... Okay, talking to Lisa. And you drink the dandelion burdock drink. Yeah. Hello, Stephen. You didn't miss anything. Don't worry, mate. Rabbit says maybe the lizards are out to get you. I'm sure they are, Rabbit. I'm sure they are. I expect them to, Oh, well, the Queen's disappeared. Did you see that? Where's she gone? Have any of you been following that? She supposedly disappeared, but there's a Tatler have released photographs of her riding her horse. Now, the interesting thing is that the period where these photos were taken, the weather was very hot. Yet people have correctly pointed out that it does seem to be a summertime shot. There's leaves on the trees, short shadows, and things like that. But she's dressed up very warmly for that kind of weather. So where do these photos come from? Where's this going? I think it's becoming a bit more liquefied. See if I can get anything out of it. Otherwise, I'll just have to. Come on. Still icy. Ooh. Don't overchill your wine. That's the thing. Or just drink red. I got more out of it anyway. But the Queen vanished. Well, apparently she's temporarily retired from public duties. Her and Philip have gone off. I think they've gone off to Sandringham or to Balmoral or somewhere, and they're just riding horses as they usually do and things like that. However, what's odd is that there's been some strange goings on at Buckingham Palace. Now, it appears that the the royal seal has been removed from the gate. Now, according to the official story, it was actually damaged. A delivery truck rammed the gate, just crashed into the gate and knocked it off. We don't know. It's been replaced by a black shield. People said there's this guy called Greg Hallett who's King John II, and he's the real monarch. He's descendant of Richard III or something like that. I haven't looked into it in detail, but I do think it's possible that Her Majesty has headed for that great reptile house in the sky. I think that's possible. And Philip too may possibly be no more in this particular realm, which I think would explain where COVID-19 comes from, doesn't it? But Her Majesty may well have shuffled off this mortal coil and seen the undiscovered country, to quote Shakespeare. If so, you might say, well, why is it not in the news? Surely they couldn't keep something like that quiet, because they would be the biggest news story for decades. You know, there'd be official mourning for a week, I think, and there'd be a massive state funeral, like the funeral of King George VI. You look at that on YouTube; there's some really good color video from Pathy. Massive event. It'd be like that. But you see, it's possible they're keeping it quiet for now until maybe after the lockdown, and then they'll announce that she's passed away. Because let's face it, I mean, she's an old lady. She's not going to go on forever, is she? Philip is even older. If you think that's not possible, right? Fidel Castro died in 2013. His death was announced in 2016. Nelson Mandela died about 6 months before his was announced. Oh, where were we? David Schultz says, on YouTube, the Duran has an interesting perspective of what's going on in the States, titled America's Neoliberal October Revolution. I've subbed to the Duran, actually. Just check them. I'll just make a note. Hang on. Oops, sorry. I've got the player open in my own live stream. Hang on. Yeah. I see the video. I have subbed to him. Yep, it was uploaded 2 hours ago. America's Neoliberal October Revolution. Okay, I'll keep that there. I'll maybe watch that later this evening. But thank you very much for that, David. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Diego Rivera says Mossad out to get you more like. Well, Mossad is part of this the massive. It seems to be almost a central figure within the global intelligence community. According to David Shaler, it's a very brutal organization. It's the one everyone's scared of. It's the most ruthless. It carries out the so-called wet work much more than, say, the CIA or MI6. But of course, if you make an enemy of them, they will go out and get you. Yes, and along with the various other parts of their network, such as MI5, MI6, CIA, FBI, etc. They all form part of a clique. Stephen says there's planet alignments. All right. Well, Stephen, I hope they're good ones. Lisa says believe nothing but your own heart and gut. Well, Lisa, I think that's the only thing we can trust these days, isn't it? I mean, it's like the certainties. It's like if you get into philosophical skepticism, what is the only thing in the world you can be certain of? Completely certain, and that is the Cartesian principle, I think, therefore I am. Apart from that, everything else could be illusion. Rabbit says The Matrix is a movie, not a documentary. I know, Rabbit, but so was 1984. So is the Roswell trilogy, but truth is spoken through fiction. This is why I wrote the Roswell trilogy. Do read it if you haven't already. Yeah, Diego Rivera, George Floyd and Floyd's father and brother were Freemasons. All right. That's interesting, Diego Rivera. Yeah. Steve 071. Hello, Steve. Benny, what's happening in Maget? All right, I've Steve, I'll be doing an update about that soon. I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but I'm just waiting for publications to cover that. We've got 53 people watching. That's quite a lot. Going for an hour and a half. But there is some updates on that, which oh god, I'll have to do that at some point. I was going to. Other things get in the way. That's the problem. I mean, everything that's happening, I've talked about in this video, essentially is getting in the way of the Maget stuff. Rabbit says he's off to have a poo. That's when I left, was it? Rabbit, I'm not that quick, honestly. Even if I have like a big chicken madras or something, I don't go that quickly. Rebecca says, I'm off too. Lisa, FB me. Zythantiops says, where's the bucket? Oh, I don't know. Can you see it anywhere? Steve, I always pull the chain. Don't worry. Lisa says, a nice chessboard floor, but it's all a massive game of chess. Yeah, that's how I try to see it. And other people have made the Freemason link, but of course, I tell you, just because I've got this checkerboard floor doesn't mean I'm a Freemason. In fact, I've only been living in this room for a couple of years. The guy who lived in here before was called Jelly, and he wasn't a Freemason either, as far as I know. And yep, Zythantiops says the checkerboard floor of Hapanmo Lodge #1. Videos, Liberace needs headphones. Yeah, I've got a feeling it's actually an acoustic piano he has. I never asked him, actually. It could be like an electronic one. I mean, the acoustic ones are very big and heavy. I've got a feeling it's like an acoustic piano. It's literally like an upright acoustic piano. The Dalai Lama says Ben's gone for a Brashinsky. I don't know. No, I don't know who that is. But I went to get this. I did get this, which is this big ice cube that used to be a bottle of wine. See if I get any more out of it now. It's slowly but surely melting. Come on in. Come on, let's have some more. Oh, right. Maybe if it's all icy on the outside. Come on. Let's see if I can get some more out. That's coming out now, but it's a bit lumpy. This is your wine slush puppy. That's it. I've got a full glass now. I'm licking. By the way, only I drink from this. This is why I go like that. No one else has to drink from it, so don't worry. But I have here a full glass of sort of like semi-iced filled wine. It's like full of brash ice, and it's Lisa says, I hope those books never fall on you in the night. Oh, right. They did once. Yeah, there's some DVDs as well and some books. Yeah. Diego says, where does he hide his police's uniform? I don't have a police's uniform. Yeah, Steve Liberace is here, unfortunately. Yes, it is a hospital porter's uniform. It's over in my studio area over there. Where are we now? We have Jack Daniels. Hello, Jack. I wouldn't mind a glass of you as a chaser to this wine. Liberace means Ben is gay. No, it doesn't. That's just what I call him because he plays the piano. His name's Alan. I call him Liberace. Rabbit says, now wash your hands. Oh, wash your hands, save lives. Yeah. Dalai Lama says, why don't the elite play Twister instead of chess? I think they play both, Dalai. Steve says, is that a tower of books, Ben? Behind me, it's a mixture of books and DVDs, but I've also got some books on a shelf over there, and I've got a pile which I haven't read over there by the electric meter. I live in this room. It's just everything I have is in this room. Stephen, I'll have food afterwards. Dalai says that was a very quick Brashinsky, Ben. What's a Brashinsky? Ian Batchelor. Hello, Ian. How are you? Oh, yeah, Rabbit. I just nipped out quickly. Oh, cheers, Lisa. Lisa's drinking. Not frozen. Good. Zythantiops, no. This is not the disclosure champagne. And you say it's never to be opened. Well, I will look for it. I'll make sure I live stream at me drinking my disclosure champagne when the time comes for me to open it. You'll enjoy that, won't you? I'll remind you that you said that. I will. Lofty, the last of the famous international playboys. Welcome. What does our Morrissey song titled individual has to say here? The green underwear bucket is under the black cloth. It's a magic trick. Ben pulls it out. Yeah, no, pulls out a rabbit. The only rabbit I know about is the proselytizing Orthodox Pentecostal one. I just sort of like when I pull it out, the bucket disappears and the underpants and socks are just magically cleaned. Chilled Hawk is lovely, Lisa. Yeah, it's slightly less chilled now. It's melting, so it's really nice. Cheers, nothing as it seems. Welcome. Rabbit says I'm very cultured, so I am. Video says no wine before it's time. Well, I was going to save it for afterwards, but it looks like this is going to be a long video. So, the Dalai Lama says on the top shelf next to the jazz bags. Don't be daft, Jallo. I keep those under my mattress like teenagers do. Lisa says, well, Lisa, it depends on. Lisa doesn't like chilled wine. It takes away the taste. With white wine, it needs to be chilled, but only lightly chilled. I've overdone it, but it's slowly melting now. I've got it. It's not in the fridge. It's just out here. So that's something. Ian Bash says, Mr. Freeze wine flavour. It could catch on. You never know. It could catch on. I mean, people always complain when they go to France that the people always complain that the beer has too heavy a chill on it. And it does, but they claim that our beer's warm. They say British beer's warm. Yeah, going to go up again now. Keeps flicking to the bottom. Where do we get to? Right. Rabbit says, Ben has no taste. Oh, Rabbit, just because I don't share your tastes. Steve071 says, where's your disclosure champagne, Ben? Has it evaporated yet? Steve, it's under my bed. It's over there, just underneath the bed. I've got it wrapped up so to keep the dust off it. I will be opening it at the correct time. It's funny how they said when Margaret Thatcher died, there was this family that really hated her. And there was this woman who she'd been keeping a bottle of wine for 22 years, a bottle of champagne in the fridge for 22 years, waiting for Margaret Thatcher to die. And when she died, they filmed her on news opening it and drinking it. It's still drinkable after all that time. It keeps for a long time, and if you keep it does actually. But I don't think I would. I don't think there's anyone I despise enough to actually celebrate their death in that way. But there's a few people I'm not fond of, but I don't think I'd go to that degree. Lisa says, now what's wrong with drinking alcohol, Ben, when doing shows? Helps with the flow. Well, Lisa, it's some people. Maybe it does. I mean, it's something I don't generally do. Just because if I get a bit tipsy, I might say something I later regret, or do something I later regret. But things like that. So it's about professionalism. However, come off it. No one's going to breathalyze me. There's no law that says I can't have a tipple when I'm doing my live stream. Just like with the show. I mean, I had a bit of wine last. Well, I actually wait till after the show for the wine, but I did have a little glass. Actually, I had one glass during the show. But at Christmas, of course, I get the brandy and mince pies out, don't I? When I do my Christmas special. Rabbit says Ben wishes people were out to get him. What? Why would I drink that, Rabbit? The Dalai Lama says Ben urinates disclosure champagne. Steve, really, Dalai? Do you want to come around and have a glass? That'd be fun. That would be. Diego Rivera says fragments of Comet Atlas will hit the Earth. No, Diego Rivera, they're too far away. They're too far away. They're just going to fly. Some will fall into the sun, and the others are just going to fly out of the solar system. I've been covering this on Space Weather on Hapanmo Radio. If you ever watch that. Videos from the underground says our only hope is that the Space Brotherhood will come down and help us, the poor ignorant Earthlings. Well, videos. Funnily enough, I covered the Vrillon message on the Hapanmo show last night. Now, this is something that happened in 1977, where this strange alien voice appeared on a TV soundtrack. I mean, I don't think that's our only hope. I do believe humans are masters of our own destiny. But if there is a Space Brotherhood out there which can help us, I would happily, I'd happily swallow my pride and say, "Oh yeah, please come on, lend us a hand." It's like the nuclear weapons thing. It's like with the some people say that the interest UFOs have with our nukes is that if it ever came to missiles being launched, they would step in and get rid of them for us. Now, I don't believe we should depend on. I'm still saying we should be very careful with nuclear weapons and minimize their use as much as we can, or minimize the threat of them as much as we can. However, if it ever came to a point where they were being launched, yeah. I'd be happy for the sources to come and pluck them out of the sky. Thank you very much indeed. As you know, if you've read the Roswell trilogy, that plot line actually comes up, and I won't say any more than that, but just read them. Read the books. Here's the first one. Shameless plug, ladies and gentlemen. Get your eyes into that. Past the time for the lockdown. Right. Lisa says Ben comes to us in real time as a real person with nothing hidden. Love you for that, Ben. Well done, you. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you very much. Although I do hide a few things, but not much. Not much. Dalai Lama sees things like the video of the underground does. Rabbit says, apart from flat Earth, is there any silly nonsense you don't believe in, Ben? Well, basically, Rabbit, I believe in anything that's not silly nonsense. By your obviously your definition of that is going to differ from mine. But for example, I don't believe that the moon is hollow. I mean, I think David Icke talks about that. From what I've seen, there's no evidence for that. I believe there are artificial structures on the moon, possibly underground as well, possibly beneath the surface of the moon, inside it. But the idea that the moon is some kind of space station doesn't make sense to me. I also don't believe that Lewis Hamilton is Barack Obama's son. That's not true. That's a very amusing one. That makes me laugh, but it's not true. And I'm sure, look, come on, Rabbit, you've got to be fair. Have you seen my jet fuel hoax video? Come on, if you want if you want to watch a video of me discrediting a conspiracy theory, just watch that. Because I'm sure you've seen it, haven't you? Lisa says, carry on, Ben. You're refreshing, just like the chilled vino. Oh, thank you very much. Cheers, Lisa. Thank you. I love doing these live streams. I really do. They're great fun. Rabbit says, I have a rabbit-like voice with a lisp because of my big bunny teeth. So from now on, that's how you must talk when you read out my messages. I'm not sure I can do that, Trans Rabbit. I used to read Beatrix Potter books to my daughter when she was little, and I used to put on funny voices for the animals. And I can't remember the voice I did for Peter Rabbit. Mrs. Tittlemouse was my favourite character, I think. Poof, poof, Mrs. Tittlemouse. No teeth, says the toad. Because Miss Tittlemouse tries to give the toad sunflower. Starts off with, like, cherry pits, and the toad can't eat them. And then Mrs. Tittlemouse gives the toad dandelion seeds, and he just blows them around the place, going poof, 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 like that. Lisa says, it's so easy to take the piss in this world. It's far harder to be real. Yeah, it's rather to be real and true. It is. It's an easy way out for some people. I mean, I've sat across from people who just say, this is why I'm careful about how I just discuss who I sort of like open out to now about my ideas and beliefs. I've stopped. I mean, one thing I really regret is even telling my dad what I think. I should have just kept my mouth shut from the start. I wish I should just stopped and just, that's it. And I didn't, because I thought I could get through to him, and I can't. He's an NPC. Sorry, but he is. I mean, the NPC meme, I won't go into it in detail now, but it's a horrible thing to say, but it explains so much. It's a key that unlocks. It does, unfortunately. Splendid Isolation is talking to Rabbit there. No, Rabbit. No, Splendid. Rabbit. I do tolerate Rabbit because he's so amusing. You can just have a laugh with some of these people. It's quite good. But if you want to block them, if you want to block anyone, just block them. That's fine with me. The Dalai Lama says, I accessed Donnie through Melania's bikinis photos on the dark web. Oh, Dalai, you lucky sod. Send me a link, will you? The Dalai Lama says, as a fully paid up intellectual tit and bum merchant, I resent the implication. Piss taking is the highest form of art, all done with love and respect, of course. Oh, Dalai, that's funny. I'm sure Lisa realises you're having a laugh there. And Stephen says, Morgellons is a parasite. I think Dr. Kaufman said that. Yeah, I mean, it's named after this thing which was observed by this guy. He actually comes up in my skeptic talk. He was a 17th century doctor. What was his bloody name? I can't remember. But he comes up in my skeptic talk. He travelled to France and he found that there were children with things coming out their arms. Very high, terribly irritating they were. Things like little fibres coming out of the arms, out of their skin. And he called them Morgellons. and he said it was caused by the. It was actually caused by a parasite, but that name is actually stuck. It's come on to mean this strange phenomenon, which I mean, doctors dismiss it as hysteria, but I think it's real. Sophia Smallstorm, Clive Carnicum, Jackie Noyes, all these other researchers, I think, have proved beyond doubt there's a reality behind it. Where is Jackie anyway? Is she here tonight? Where's Edwardian Lady? Is she here? Are you there, Edwardian Lady? Are you there, Jackie? Rabbit says, I think it's highly likely the virus will completely wipe out the conspiracy nutter community. Well, it hasn't worked with me, Rabbit. I've had it and it hasn't. Come on, let's face it. I mean, what would you do with your life if that ever happened? Who would you go online and rant at? Eh? Who would you criticize? Be honest. You need us, don't you? Just like Steve mumbling. Jimmy Jenkins. Hello, Jimmy Jenkins. Sarsaparilla is a sure shot clue. All right. Cure. That's interesting, Jimmy. I'm happy to try that. Steve071 says, Ben, do you have to wear a mask from the 15th? I have to use one to get to work on public transport. It's annoying, Steve. I know it's pushing us into a really difficult position. Luckily, I'm not dependent on public transport to get to work because I work basically. I live less than a mile from where I work. Well, I work in various different places, but where the bulk of my work is, the only place where I'm working at the moment, I'm only doing 3 hours a day, is literally less than a mile from where I live. But I know that people, especially in big cities like London, they depend on public transport. They're going to be forced to wear bloody masks. I mean, they're basically saying you wear a mask or you have a fine or you might be kicked off. It's important. It's now, I've got an idea about that and I may explore that, but it only came to me today. But if you have to wear a mask, why not make one with some subversive message written across it? I mean, they're already, the fashion industry is already getting in on this because you can buy designer masks. I don't know if you've seen them, but they don't miss a trick. They don't miss a trick. Now, this is one of the growth industries in this period of coronavirus recession. And it's possible you may be able to design one with your own design. And in each case, why not put Infowars.com, DavidIke.com, Hapanwo.blogspot.com, and things like that on it, or even coronavirus hoax or something like that. Hashtag lockdown is Orwellian or something like that. That I think is a solution. That's something positive. That's one of the ways. This is like the pride, intelligence, guts thing that I talked about in the Syntheos video the other day. It's how you can turn these things back on each other. This is like the dignity statement. You turn your attacks back at your enemy without initiating one of your own. Lisa says the Queen's disappeared, probably down the hole somewhere to the evil depths. Well, that's where she comes from, Lisa. Maybe she's gone back. She's gone down to her underground chamber. Where are we now? Lisa says, "Who gives a shit?" Well, quite honestly, Lisa. I mean, I'm not a royalist. I mean, I'm. It's ironic, you know, because I can't stand those bloody British Republicans. I think they're a bunch of horrible little cultural Marxists. But am I honestly a royalist? No. I regard. Well, I'm not against the principle of a monarchy. Maybe I am a royalist in that sense. I actually do think probably a monarchy is a good thing for our particular country. A monarchy, but not the one we have now, which is the Habsburg Illuminati bloodline, who are usurpers. They have no constitutional right to the throne. And they are a bunch of bloody lizards. They're a bunch of giant fifth-dimensional lizards who should be in their own dimension. They should bugger off and leave us humans alone. Splendid talking to Rabbit. Yeah, Stephen, the royal seal has gone from the gates. I saw that. Now, the official story is it was damaged by a delivery truck. But I can't help feeling if that may be a bit of backfilling, putting in disinformation after the incident to make it look like it was there beforehand. Jimmy says she has the right name for Ike's allegations in the rhyming sense. Lizard, yeah, lizard, Lizardbeth, yes, that's true. Yeah, funnily enough, what was the name of that? She was one of Diana's friends. I think it was Vera Diamond. She called she called Lady McCorkindale Lady McCrocodile. And she said that Diana called them the reptiles and the lizards. That was her nickname for the Windsors. Now, Vera Diamond sadly passed away. I think she actually died before Diana did. But she was she was a medium. And she was one of Diana's friends and confidants. Do you know what? David published an interview with Vera Diamond, and it was taken down. That was years ago. That was long before YouTube censorship was normal. Steve Palmer says SpaceX started testing a sun visor for their Starlink satellites. A visor was fitted to one of the 60 launched yesterday. The idea is to make the satellites less visible. Oh, that's a shame, Steve, because I was hoping to see them. And I mean, surely it's not a good idea to make these less visible because, or maybe Musk has decided that people have seen enough of them. I don't know. Diego Rivera says the Queen is dead. COVID-19 on the death certificate. Well, it seems that everyone's dying of COVID-19 at the moment, aren't they? I mean, the fake death certificate thing is very interesting. Mark Devlin talks about that. It's all part of this hoax. I mean, like I said, I'm not as extreme as many people in the conspiracy sphere. I think there is a real virus when other people are saying there's no virus. But at the same time, I'm still a nutter compared to the mainstream because I think the whole lockdown is complete overkill, and the reason it's overkill is because it's being used. It's like the riots. It's used to advance the New World Order. Where are we now? Steve says there are rumors Prince Philip is dead. Do you think it could be true? They're waiting to announce it. Yes, Steve, it's perfectly possible. I thought that I had a feeling he might have died close to the time of Stephen Hawking, but they didn't want to tell people simply because there was when Stephen Hawking died, there was an outpouring of public grief. There was it was quite touching actually how people had nothing to do with science or anything like that turned up at his funeral. They were lining the streets. It's pretty obvious he was a very popular man. He was very appreciated. He was well loved by the population as a celebrity. He was one of people's favorite celebrities. Now, do you think when Prince Philip goes goodbyes, right, when he carks it, as the Australians say, are you going to have the same reaction? Are you going to see people as sad as they were when Stephen Hawking died? I don't think so. I don't think so. I certainly won't be very sad. I mean, I think people are just going to shrug their shoulders and be fairly nonchalant about it. Of course, there'll be the official state funeral. There'll be the newsreaders looking very sad, like those ones in North Korea. I mean, they won't be weeping like the North Korean ones were when the great leader died, because they had to cry their eyes out, or they'd been sent off to the re-education camps. But oh yes, there'll be the usual official mourning, but most people aren't going to give a shit, are they? So, it's possible they don't. I thought it was possible they didn't want to announce Philip's death too close to Hawking's for that reason, so people would compare the two. But who knows? I mean, there may be many reasons to do with timing why they are sitting on this information, and it may be it may actually be to do with the desire to preserve the Windsor line. I mean, if you think about it, if the Windsors are usurpers, I mean, who's carrying on now? Charles is going to be a bit worried. It could be their concern for various reasons known only to them, possibly to do with the Plantagenet bloodline, that they don't want to announce it because they're concerned that King John, King John II, what's his bloody name? Greg Hallett. Is it Greg Hallett? I wish I should have looked into this. Sorry. Yeah, where is it? Oh, what's his name? He's part of the Plantagenet bloodline. His official name would be King John II. The first King John, I think, brought in the Magna Carta. What the bloody hell? Oh yeah. He lost the Duchy of Normandy and seceded most of the French lands to the King Philip of France. That's right, because England was occupying France in those days. I can't bloody remember all the details of it, but his name's he apparently is the rightful King of England. I don't know. Now, if that's the case, if you're in that position, you don't want the Habsburgs might want to hang on to the throne of England. That's the thing. This could be the reasons of state, which is why they're sitting on the fact that the incumbent monarch is dead, or the incumbent monarch consort is dead. Yeah, Jimmy says skullduggery. Yes. Lisa says weird stuff going on with Greg Hallett, the apparent field king of England, the real king of England. I keep asking him, do we actually need one? He won't answer me. Lisa, I mean, it's an interesting question about the monarchy generally as a principle. I mean, obviously I'm against whether the monarchy is a good thing or not. Certainly, I can't stand these bloody Republicans. They're really obnoxious. However, it's an interesting point whether we need a monarchy or not. It's a separate issue, I suppose, to the idea that there's a usurper. There actually is a fake monarch. There's a fake queen on the throne, a lizard from the fifth dimension. Oh, blimey, I wish I could get into more. I'm interested in this sort of thing. I bet Chris Everard knows about this. He's the guy to look into. I interviewed him once for when I did a special show about Diana, the princess's death, her anniversary. Lisa says, since we're merely pawns between the black and white rulers of this coil, who cares? Huh? Well, I think I care, obviously. I don't think the Illuminati obviously don't care about us, do they? Diego Rivera says, George Floyd tested positive to COVID-19. He could not breathe. Yeah. I shouldn't laugh. I shouldn't. It's not funny. But, you know, it's horrible what happened to him. There's jokes going around that's going to be on his death certificate, and so Chauvin will be acquitted as a result. I don't know. I shouldn't laugh about it, but it's funny. It is funny, yeah. Splendid. Yeah, Splendid. I agree with what you're saying about Rabbit. You might as well call Ben a poopy pants for all your offering to the debate. I agree, you know. Rabbit, but Splendid isolation. But Rabbit's quite good fun, actually. And maybe I've got a very thick skin because I mean I don't tolerate everyone who interacts with me. There's a whole list of people who are on my banned list. But I think perhaps because I've been in a situation where I've been called things where I have to call the police because it's things like that. A low level sort of rudeness doesn't really bother me. Rabbit says Hallett is another nutcase. Are you sure about that, Rabbit? Tell us why. Stephen says, yeah, the guy was killed. He was claiming to be the real Prince Harry. I don't know about that, Stephen. I know Prince Harry himself is, I think he's part of what they call the Bend Sinister, isn't he? I mean, the resemblance to Hewitt is incredible. You know, Hewitt, Diana's riding instructor. Yeah. Obviously, they're keeping that quiet. They're just letting him be a prince. And Harry, you know, I've been watching these royal watchers, you know, according to Taz and what's her name? Murky Meg, and they're always gone on about Meghan, about how much they hate Meghan Markle, and how awful she is, and how she's a gold digger, and she's going to divorce Harry and get lots of money out of him. I don't know. I mean, Harry obviously loves her, and Harry's been suffering from depression and things like that. I think he's been down since he left the army because, like, us guys, you know, our work is important to us guys, and especially if it's like a workplace with a sense of community and camaraderie, which is what the army's like. It's like what I was like at the hospital, and when you lose that, it really takes a big chunk out of you. It really does. And he's married to this girl. He's obviously very much in love with Meghan. Meghan, I've not seen. I mean, she's people. The royal watchers, you know, they always bring up this stuff to do with her past, about her divorce and about how she treats her friends and she ghosts them and stuff like that. What's the phrase? Ghosted by Meghan is kind of like a hashtag. But oddly enough, that royal watchers, I mean, there's this other group of royal watchers called the Sussex Squad, who are supporters of Meghan Markle, and they doxed Murky Meg, and they attacked, according to Taz. So they go for each other like that. And so the Sussex Squad are all supporters of Meghan Markle. They're mostly Americans, but they the kind of like infighting you get in the conspiracy theory, you get that in the Royal Watchers community as well. It's pretty nasty. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, as far as you say here, Hallett's another nutcase. You don't. I mean, Rabbit, you don't know that. I mean, to be honest, I don't know that either because I don't know much about the subject. Rabbit says Hallett has books to sell. What are they called? Are you sure? I've not seen any titles with his name on. Is it? And Splendid says here, yes, name calling, no substance. Splendid says, and that's absolutely right, Rabbit. You can say this. I could say at any point, right, that a mathematician who says that 2 + 2 = 4 only wants to sell books. Does that mean that 2 + 2 = 5? Come on, let's be logical about it, shall we? Lisa says, yeah, I mean, honestly, Lisa, I don't know much about Greg Hallett. I don't. Rabbit says Hallett's most likely mentally ill. Oh, is that? Could we have a second opinion, Doctor? Lisa says she went to Hallett's talk and asked him how he would change things for us. No answer. Right. You know, honestly, Lisa, I'll have to look into more about this. Maybe talk to Greg myself. I really don't know. The Dalai Lama says, "How dare you, Rabbit? His Glorious Majesty Gregory Hallett is our saviour. I can't wait for those double names." Rabbit says, "Or a con man." I think everyone gets accused of being a con man, Rabbit. Do you think I'm in this? Do you think I'm just to sell that? You think that's the only reason I do this? I have the writing talent and skills to produce excellent mainstream material. I could write for the BBC if I wanted to. I could write a play, a BBC play about how evil white heterosexual men are, and I could be paid millions for it, for the script, and I could be a big star, and I could be wheeled out at the BAFTAs to say, you know, oh, la di la di la, you know, hashtag white people are evil and things like that. If I wanted to, I could be a columnist for the Guardian if I wanted to. I could do all these things simply by selling out and grifting, the way so many of them do. I got quite angry actually. I bumped into a person. I used to be in a writer's circle here in Oxford. I left it years ago. I was never really very, very welcome there. I bumped into a guy who was in that group, and he's now recently had a play of his. Well, it's not actually been performed yet, but he's done loads of rehearsals by webinar because, of course, of the lockdown. As soon as the lockdown's over, it's going to be performed in the West End. And I remember when I was in the group with him, I thought, how much? I mean, I'm not being arrogant here. I'm trying not to be, but I remember thinking to myself, how much of a better writer I was than him. I said I could write circles around this guy. And so I said to him, "What's the play? And what's this play?" He says, "It's about Islamophobia." And I thought, you little whore, you little grifter. You have produced something. You are a second-rate writer who's fully aware of your own lack of talent, and you have produced a substandard piece of writing. But because of its conceptual elements, that is, it fits in with the sort of left-wing white people are evil narrative, you're going to be a big success. You're going to be a bigger success than I am. You know, it's like, what's it Bill Hicks used to say? Oh, anyway. So Ithantiop says, some great books out there about Mossad. They are nutters. Yeah, I read a book about the intelligence services, and Mossad was named in them. Yeah. Steve says Paul McCartney died 44 years ago. They still haven't announced his death. Correct, Steve. Yes, correct. I've done an entire video on that. Rabbit says Hallett is quite popular with some QAnon folk, but I don't think interest in him will last long. Well, you know, it depends, won't it? It depends what happens. You know, do you just realise, Rabbit, that events will prove one of us right or one of us wrong? Lisa says, truth is spoken through apparent fiction, always. It is, Lisa, yeah. This is what conceptual fiction is all about. This is what 1984 is all about. There's many, many other examples of people who express real life concepts through stories. I mean, even some of the Bible stories are really great. You know, and there's some really excellent Bible stories. If you just treat them as literature and don't necessarily believe them as fact. For example, the story of Adam and Eve obviously is not true. I don't think there was a man called Adam and a woman called Eve. I don't believe they got into trouble for eating an apple because a talking snake told them to. It's not meant to be interpreted literally. It is symbolic. It's simply symbolic of the human relation with the divine. It's the human's relationship with the divine. I don't interpret it as literally. When you interpret it as symbolic, what you have is an excellent allegory of a piece of allegorical fiction about the fall of man and possibly our return to grace. And this is what my stories are about. That they're about, you know, my books, the Roswell trilogy, and that new one, even more this new one I'm writing now, the Obscurati Chronicles, which you can read. You can read 2 sample chapters of that for free online, by the way. It's on Ben's bookcase. They're not about the fall of man. They're about our return to grace. Splendid Isolation says to Rabbit, just wondering if you believe everything the establishment tells you. Good question. Well, Rabbit, do you? Rabbit says, just give me a very basic rundown of the plot, Ben. Of what? The Roswell trilogy? All right, then. All right. In a nutshell, there's a disclosure event during the Roswell incident. So the weather balloon story is trashed through some oversight. So there's no weather balloon story. But then there's like a counter disclosure movement. They try to claw the truth embargo tries to claw everything back, but it doesn't work. Then there's a sort of like a very, very turbulent sort of transitional period. And then eventually things sort of settle down and we kind of heal ourselves of the trauma caused by the truth embargo and the Illuminati. That's your brief rundown, but it's not very satisfactory, is it? You couldn't pass the while on a long haul flight just listening to me say that, could you? Ravenhill, the crossbow sword merchant, 1968. Hello, Ravenhill. Thanks for joining us. Ben, does 5G hurt your eyes through using an LCD computer monitor? Or is this fear-mongering? Someone told me this on the website Yahoo Answers because I was explaining my eyes have been aching a lot using. My monitor, it's an Acer monitor. It is LCD. I haven't noticed... Well, firstly, there's no... I can check, actually, because this phone should register any 5G networks. I know the kind of the codes to look out for. Where is it? Here we go. There's nothing. It's not picking up any 5G. My phone, even if my phone is actually not 5G activated. Do you like that? Do you like my wallpaper, by the way? Can you see that? I know it's a Panwo Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. It's not 5G compliant or whatever the word is, but you can still pick up the signals. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't noticed any change in my use of this monitor. Diego versus Descartes, I think, therefore she is. Is that some sort of feminist equivalent of the Cartesian principle? Rabbit, I don't know. I don't know how 5G would hurt your eyes through a PC monitor. I don't think it actually makes any difference because the monitor doesn't change, even if the sort of the input does, even if like your cellular connection changes. Zythantiop says Zbigniew Brzezinski. Hey, is that what Dalai Lama meant? Dalai Lapa. Yes. All right, I get it. Yeah, Dalai Lapa actually says here, that's it. A Brzezinski or a Zbigniew if you're in a posh restaurant. Oh, I see, having a Brzezinski. That's a good one. I get you now. I get it. Yeah. Nice one. I have to remember that. I'm just going off. Oh, God, I've got to go for a Brzezinski. You know. Lisa Cry Freedom says, put the bottle between your legs, Ben. Ooh, kinky. Ooh, matron. It's actually, it probably wouldn't be very comfortable air, actually. It's a bit sensitive. But it is, it's all, oh, it's melted now. It's all melted. The ice has gone, so it's just nice, chilled, lightly chilled German Riesling or Koch or whatever it is. Something from the Mosel Valley, anyway. Hey, cheers, Lisa. I've got some red wine as well. I'm not gonna drink that tonight, but Rabbit says, "How about you actually move those books someplace else? Have you ever thought of that?" Well, where can I put them? I don't have anywhere else. This is my space. I mean, there's a lounge, but there's no bookshelf in it, and Ahmed and Hossan use that as well. So, and they can't put their stuff there. We have to keep our personal belongings in our own rooms, not in the communal spaces of the house or the flat I'm in. You can't do that. Lisa says, "What I love about you, Ben, is you take insults on the chin." Oh, thanks, Lisa. What you see is what you get. It's very rare these days. Incredibly. Jack Daniels says, "How do you think Trump is handling the USA riots? What do you think of his strategy, if he has one at all?" Actually, Jack, people have criticized me for saying this because they think it's because I've always riled against government authoritarianism. But what's wrong with using military force in this situation? Where are we now? Just go up again. Hang on. Oh God, it's obviously a lot. If I get through all these. All right, I've got to go right up here. If you're dealing with an enemy, that's what the military's for. And in this case, the riots are not caused by the police deal with crime. The military deals with a foreign enemy, and we are dealing with a foreign enemy here. So what's wrong with him using military force in this situation? It seems it seems to be quite a popular decision he's made because he hasn't actually done that yet, and hopefully it depends how the riots go because they're dying down now. As these things do have a shelf life and they are dying down. They flare up and die down. But if the riots are a product of a foreign occupation or foreign infiltration of the nation, then according to the Kellogg-Briand Pact, which basically is the document signed in 1920 by all the major nations of the world to basically, it's like the Geneva Convention. It tells you the rules of war. It fits within that. It would fit within both the Geneva Convention and, well, that's to do with prisoners of war and things like that. But it's about the rules of engagement. It deals with the Geneva Convention and indeed the Kellogg-Briand Pact. So Trump is absolutely quite right to do that. In fact, I would much prefer to see our armed forces being used against a real enemy of our nation to actually save the country from a real foreign enemy than being sent off to some bloody Middle East godforsaken place to blow people up for some oil company or for Israeli expansionism. If it's a choice between that and what they're doing, what Trump has suggested they do, yeah, bring the troops home and let them defend the country, which is their job. That's what they signed up for. And, it's probably a good job I got kicked out when I was in Navy training. Lisa, you're right. He is handling it awesomely. He is. Lisa says he's a true enlightened star of our future. Believe me or not, I care not. I believe you. I think he's a star seed. I think he's a light worker. Paul Armstrong says, "Disclosure Perry is now a vintage." Paul, it would be tempting to sell it actually at some point, but I made a promise, which was to keep it for disclosure, and I'm going to keep that promise. I'm going to keep it, and besides which, I think it's like just a cheap brand. I don't think it'll ever be vintage, but it could have some kind of value at some point, some kind of monetary value. And to be honest, I'm not. I'm going to open the bottle and drink it. I'm able to sell the empty bottle afterwards. You never know. Splendid says, right, the rioters, looters, vandals need to be brought to heel. Sending in the National Guard is a good decision to rein in uncivilized people. Yes, I mean, normally I would say let the police should deal with this because of habeas corpus, the rule about how to deal with civil unrest from an internal source. But we're not dealing with an internal source. That's the point. Trump knows this. These riots are not simply a spontaneous outburst of angry people because some guy was killed by the police. It's being organised by a well-funded, well-supplied, well-trained group of people. Now, I don't know if you've seen Project Veritas's latest video. There's a guy who actually infiltrated Antifa, and he talks about how it works. It's almost like he's been recruited. It's almost like being recruited as an agent for the intelligence services. He has to go to some kind of left-wing bookshop before they open, and they take him into a secret meeting and things like this. It's very interesting. This is a foreign infiltration designed to do damage to the body politic, to the nation state, to the people. Splendid, you're absolutely right, and Lisa's right too. This is the absolute perfect mission for the armed forces. Is what the armed forces were created for. Lisa, I've been having a lot of wine lately. I mean, not too much. But not too much. Well, Lisa says, why does white wine need to be chilled? I try it not chilled. It tastes so much better. Well, again, Lisa, it's all to do with your palate. I mean, I know a guy who likes eating cold baked beans. It's just what he prefers. There's no law that says you have to drink white wine chilled. You can't stick your red wine in the freezer and let that turn into a big ice cube. There's no law against it. It's just, I personally like as is convention, white wine to be chilled and red wine not to be. Diego Rivera says, will Derek Chauvin die of coronavirus as George Floyd had it? Maybe the Chinese cop. Well, I don't. It's possible he might be. Someone might do an Epstein on him. I don't know. I mean, obviously his trial is going to be very, very. There's been a lot of publicity related to his trial. Regardless, I mean, I think it looks to me like the prosecution obviously have a case. It was filmed. It was all filmed and everything. You know, it's like. It's not like hearsay. There was videotaped evidence. It's not like the Trayvon Martin case where a guy shot. There was Trayvon Martin was a young man who shot it turned out in self-defense, according to the court, by a guy who was basically running a neighborhood watch group. And it does look like that's a verdict I actually agree with, based on the evidence that I've seen. But I don't know. There's no film that proves it. In this case, there is. No, but regardless of it doesn't really matter about how the trial goes or what the sentence is. The people who instigated the riots we've just seen are going to try and instigate some more. It doesn't matter what sentence he gets. I mean, he could be sentenced to be executed by guillotine in the National Mall. It doesn't make any difference. There's going to be riot. There's probably going to be another attempt to start riots again. And that's what I hope Trump and other people are aware of that, and they know to sort of like try and work against it. The Dalai Lama says, I'll call you the Dalai Lama in a minute. That's from the Illuminatus trilogy by Robert Anton Wilson and Robert Shane. The Dalai Lama says, I'll have you know I come from a long line of royal fluffers, Lisa. Prince Andrew once complimented my ostrich feathers. Oh, you're right, Joker, aren't you, Dalai? Yeah, Stephen, Trump is dealing with the troublemakers. I mean, I think if they carried on at the level they have been all this whole week, Trump would have used military force. And he would have been right to. And I know a lot of people, that's going to make me unpopular with some people, but tough shit. I think it is lawful for him to use military force, and it is appropriate under the Kellogg-Briand Pact and the Geneva Convention for the armed forces to be used in those circumstances. If I had stayed in the Royal Navy and I hadn't become a hospital porter and hadn't become like what I am now, I would have been comfortable going in to tackle those rioters. I really would have done. Although I'd have probably had to shell them from sea or something, on my ship. Diego Rivera says street parties when the Queen dies. Corona party. Well, there'll be Corona beer, I'm sure. The LARPA says, as a fully employed Soros shill, I resent the implication, Lisa. Dalai LARPA, if you were a fully employed Soros shill, you wouldn't tell us, would you? Nihilist Lives Matter. Hi, Nihilist. How are you? I insist on my Floyd being pink. Oh, me too. Me too. Shine on, you crazy diamond. It's chocolate for the ears. It really is. Splendid says, yeah, many are bussed in from out of state, paid Bolsheviks. Correct, Splendid. They have bricks delivered to them by building firms. They're given uniforms to wear. This black bloc hoodie and things like that. It's all GI. So this is not a spontaneous uprising of angry people who are fed up with their lot in life of being treated with injustice. It's not. That's the excuse. That's the pretext for an organized, attempted insurrection. That's what this is about. It's about bringing down Trump. That's what they want to do. It's not working, but that's what they're trying to do. Rabbit says, knowing the things Ben said and done, it's difficult to imagine what he thinks he'd do and say if he got pissed up. Well, Rabbit, I've actually nearly finished this bottle. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. That's my third glass. You may find out if you hang on. Also, I mean, you'd have had to go to the John Ratcliffe Social Club on a Saturday night, and you should have seen me in action then, I'll tell you. Oh, yeah. Zythantiop says, Ben, have you been watching any of Mark Windows stuff on Windows on the World? There's some quite good info he comes out with. I have watched. I haven't for a while, but I know Mark, and I know his program, which is excellent. It's excellent, yeah. His stuff's really good. Dalai Lama said, how do you know? Have you seen my bus pass? Dalai Lama, you're going to have to wear your mask if you're going to use that. Diego Rivera says, I will be on the side of the aliens. Well, you know, Diego Rivera, I think I am an alien, quite frankly. Steve says, any upcoming plans when the lockdown is eased until the returning second wave? That takes us back under house arrest, Ben. Yes, Steve, yes, I'm actually speaking at Truth Seekers Northeast on the 1st of August. Now, that's nearly 2 months away. Surely by then, I'll be able to get on a coach and go there. I mean, but I'm doing a talk about, it's about the coronavirus and real zombies. If you get there, it's in Newcastle upon Tyne. You can, all the details are actually on the Hapanmo Voice blog, so you can find them there. And it'd be lovely to see you. It really would. Stephen says, who is going to be followed? The arrows on the pavement. Following. The arrows on the pavement is bollocks. I don't do that. I mean, in a shop, all right, in a private institution like a shop, I'm happy to go along with, to follow the one-way system. But I'm not bloody on a public highway. I go wherever I like. That's absolute bollocks. I'm not following any damn arrows. Diego Rivera says we need to send a signal to the aliens so they can invade Earth. We need them. Well, it depends on the aliens, Diego Rivera. It does, doesn't it? Splendid isolation. LARPA is not a troublemaker. He is just a LARPA, I think. Rabbit says, why don't you do an audio recording of your books? Well, it takes a long time to do it. I have actually done an audio recording of my first novel, Evans Land, which is actually on Hapanlo TV. But I've kind of partly denounced that book because I was very proud of it when I first wrote it. It's quite a magnum opus, quite an achievement for a first novel. But I look back on it now and I cringe a bit. I think this is a common feature of writers. We get better and we look back. We often turn against our earlier creations. Most writers get better with time, and I think I've certainly got better. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, I think other people generally like it more than I do. I don't have any copies of it left. I sold them all. I was selling them off for $5 a piece in the end because it's an old book. Its name still comes up on Amazon for about £12 or something, but it's remainder prices basically now. But I'm thinking of maybe getting it scanned in and put up on Ben's bookcase. But I've got an audio book. But doing audio recordings is difficult. Doing audio recordings takes a long time. Doing good audio recordings means getting very good recording equipment and hopefully getting somebody with perhaps a better voice than me, or somebody maybe well known or famous, to do sort of like readings and things like that. The Dalai Lama says, "I just wish he'd do the live stream in the all together." Lisa, what do you mean? Steve Palmer says, "Were you ever a flat earther, Ben?" Funny enough, someone else asked me that in the comments the other day, and I'm looking forward to my next comments reply video so I can answer that question. But seeing as you brought it up now, the answer is no. I've never been a flat earther, believe it or not. I did toy with the idea of the hollow earth for a while, but that's not true. It's not true. Zythantiops, what about the British Bigfoot, Ben? I think the British Bigfoot is real. In a word, yeah. Lisa says, being a pawn in this world stinks, doesn't it? It does, Lisa, but there must be some reason why we came here. I do believe like Michael Newton says, we do somehow choose our lives. So I must have chosen this to be born in this world as I am for a reason. And whatever that reason is, I'm just going to try and make the most of it. I think all we can do, Lisa, is make the most of it while we're here. I mean, and you actually say here, but we must move on accordingly and do our best. So Lisa carries on and basically says what I just did, and that's right. I mean, if you think about it, if we could walk away from all this and become normies, I mean, it'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it? It'd be a hell of a lot easier. It would stink a lot less, but I'd feel hollow. I'd feel like I'd betrayed myself and other people if I ever did that. I couldn't forgive myself if I ever did that. Rabbit says, nothing Ike says makes sense. Just 5 words in that sentence without any details at all. Well, Rabbit, I've done videos about David Icke where you could, if you wish, provide more detailed comments and we could discuss them. I invite you to do so. So we could talk about everything Icke says and work out exactly what makes sense and what doesn't, and perhaps maybe come to some agreement on some things. If not, then disagree, of course. Nihilist says, Bigfoot ban. I wonder how the Bigfoot is coping with the lockdown. Yeah, maybe Deborah Hatswell can tell us more about that. But I think the Bigfoot, obviously, the human world doesn't really affect the Bigfoot because it avoids it whenever possible. Lisa says, Dalai, you're perverted. Lol, yeah. Lisa, there are many who understand, I know. That's true. Nothing is as it seems. The moon is not a space station. It's built like a geode. Well, it's very, very, it has a very regular orbit. In fact, it has the least eccentric orbit of any object that we know of in the universe. It is almost perfectly circular. It in itself appears to have it has a very low density for an object of its size, which indicates one of the reasons for that, because we know that its geology. Well, we don't know much about its geology, but the Apollo mission's geology, of course, is dubious because of the dubious nature of the Apollo missions. But we know that it has a low density, which could indicate that it has. The origins of the moon are unknown. Some people say it's the giant impact. In other words, it used to be part of the Earth and the moon used to be part of a single body that broke apart because of some kind of collision. Others say it was something that was flying around in space and then was captured by the Earth's gravity. But then, in which case, why doesn't it have a more eccentric orbit? Because things that do that generally have a very elliptical, off-angled orbit. Like Pluto. Pluto was probably some kind of rogue planet that came close to the Earth. Same with many other members of the Kuiper Belt and the scattered disk, like Eris and the others. That's why it has such an eccentric orbit. Elliptical, off the plane of the ecliptic, in other words, angled up from where the sun and the other planets are. But the moon's not like that. The moon has a perfect orbit, a perfect circle orbit, virtually. But its low density could be because there are hollow spaces inside it. Doesn't mean it itself is hollow and it's not a space station, but it may just possibly have large amounts of hollow space inside. What's very interesting about it is that it occupies a space on the celestial sphere. Its size on the celestial sphere is exactly the same as the sun, which means that this is why you get like the amazing eclipse effects you get here, which probably very, very rare. And there's nowhere else in the solar system does that happen. It's possibly that there's not another single effect like that in the universe. It's probably very rare within the universe. You get this amazing thing where the sun fits exactly the moon fits exactly over the Earth, and you get this over the sun. You get this amazing total eclipse. You see the corona, the solar corona, and things like that. Now, could it be a coincidence, as the skeptics would say, or there may be something more in it? David Schultz says, Ben, here's a great song which you may enjoy on YouTube. George Thorogood and the Destroyers, I Drink Alone. That sounds like they know me. But yeah, David, I'll check that out. Diego Rivera says, the English Bigfoot has COVID-19. Well, unlikely, Diego Rivera. Firstly, how would it catch it if it's avoiding human contact? If it could, is it the kind of virus that could affect a creature like that? Nihilist says, Michelle Obama might be Lewis Hamilton's father. Yeah. Zythantiops, what do you make of Tim Refat? I'm not sure you know Zythantiops, because I first came across Tim Refat years ago, because he was on that series with John Ronson, For the Love Of, which came out in the late 90s, and there was a thing about the moon landings. Miles was on it, a sort of red-haired Miles with a smart shirt and a moustache. You don't often see that. There was there's Matthew Williams with spiky black hair. Oh, it's weird. Yeah, it was weird. There's Marcus Allen looking like a hippie. And Tim Refat was on that. I'm not sure, to be honest. I haven't looked into enough of what he has to say. Gary Robinson says, yay, Gary Robinson, the real Gary Robinson is in the house. Hello. Steve says, big footprints. Ben, British Bigfoot, just thought it was time he got a shout out. Oh, he has. I hope Bigfoots around the world who have internet access enjoyed that. Lisa says, keeping your mouth shut from the start, re your dad. You can't do that, Ben. You can only ever be you and should never deny that. Always only be you, especially if you know your heart is true. Well, I think I get your point, Lisa. It's just been so frustrating, because it's not that he even disagrees with me. It's just that it's not like he has an opinion on Brexit. It was all tying in with the Brexit issue. It's not that he has an opinion that he disagrees with. It's just he does not have an opinion. I think he's going along to get along, because his partner, she's a Remainer. All his friends are Remainers. He hangs out with this guy who was his old boss, and they have posh parties and things like that, and he tries to fit in. And I think that's why he does it. I mean, I know, because when I tried to discuss it with him, I mean, he literally lost every single debate, absolutely every single debate he had, but he wouldn't change his position. He just will not change his position. The Dalai Lama says most Bigfoot sightings in Britain are due to Miles Johnston's grocery shopping. Once the barber's open, everything should calm down. Yeah, I've seen Miles's lockdown cut. It looks bloody awful. Yeah, it's worse than Jonathan Pye's. Diego Ferris, D Hall has done more statement analysis. Oh right, yeah, it was that that was in the Manchester thing, wasn't it? You got that Geordie lady, I think she's the British equivalent of Peter Hyatt, to analyze the various witnesses supposed and survivors supposed of the Manchester arena bombing, if it was indeed a bombing, which it probably wasn't actually. He worked out that the guy in the wheelchair, he already had a bad back. He had a herniated disc, which is a very extremely painful condition and debilitating. There's various people who just trip over their words, and people who are injured and can't work out what their injuries were, things like that. And Diego Rivera says he should do one on Ben. Well, he's welcome to if he wants. But though I don't believe that. See, I made this point, I think, in other videos where he talks when it comes to the Rendlesham Forest incident, because Richard E. Hall reckoned he very brazenly stated at one point, "I'm going to solve the Rendlesham Forest mystery once and for all. I've got the key to unlocking to find out what really happened." And his program on the subject was an enormous disappointment because it was simply just statement analysis from Peter Hyatt, and that was it. Now, if he, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, Peter Hyatt's a very interesting guy, and what his input is very interesting. But he did it without bringing any other evidence to bear. And if you depend on just one single source of independence, you're going to make mistakes. And I think Richard's becoming a bit too focused on the statement analysis thing at the expense of what could be a more broad church area of research. For example, when Richard was producing his Rendlesham Forest incident video, he could easily have consulted with the two principal researchers into the Larry Warren situation, which is me and Gary Hazeltine, and he didn't. He didn't have to approach us as strangers because he already knows us, and I don't know why that was. It would have been a better program if he'd done that. Absolutely know that for sure. The Dalai Lama says, "You've got to admit he's gone completely Doc Brown." Yes. I love the scene in Back to the Future where Doc Brown is shown the videotape from the future from 1985, and he's in 1955. He's, "Thank goodness, I've still got my hair." Stiltskin says, "D Hall's fucking livid because his tour was cancelled." Well, yeah, I can't blame him for that. I mean, it's the same thing for me. It's the same thing for me. I was going to go to the Lapis conference. Not Lapis, not Truth Seekers. What's it called? Weird Weekend North. I couldn't go. And Richard had an entire repertoire booked, didn't he? And he couldn't do it. He had like a virtual tour. But it's really annoying, and it's really heartbreaking actually for him because he had to go to his mum's funeral, and they were like socially distancing the chairs in the crematorium. I mean, what an awful thing to have to deal with when your mum's dead. And of course, the bastards, they insist on these sort of things at funerals. But then when the rioters want to go out and scrawl Black Lives Matters on the cenotaph and things like that, there's no social distancing enforcement there, is there? What's this? Rabbit says the NPC thing is an interesting insult because conspiracy nuts like to imagine themselves as main characters when really they are anything but. Well, Rabbit, I don't have time to go into more detail now. That is an oversimplification, but I'd need half an hour at least to explain the whole NPC thing, and I don't have time now. I've been going for 2 hours 37 minutes. I'll tell you what, the 3 hour point, I'm going to knock it on the head, guys. All right. Paul says that was his yearly money earner. Well, of course. I mean, Richard earns his living primarily from these live shows, and he's obviously now out of pocket, like many, many other people are, as a result of the lockdown. It's like me. Well, I'm down to 3 hours a day's work. It's left me short. I mean, it's everyone, isn't it? Shall we now? Oh, Lisa says most folk only act when it affects them. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Sometimes you've got to wait for things to get so bad that people are affected in their personal lives. But if you have foresight, if you are a person with an internal dialogue and not an NPC, you can look and you can anticipate the future. You can look and see what's coming down the line and think, well, I might be okay now, but what am I going to be like in 10 years' time? Maybe I should nip this in the bud before it gets that bad. Dalai Lama hashtag Basis Barber. David Schultz says, Ben, Thomas Sheridan had a neat black face mask. On it, he'd written, "fuck off." I might get something. I tell you what, if I'm ever put in a position where, I can't do something I really need or want to do without the face mask, like going to Truth Seekers Northeast or something, I'll get a designer face mask with something subversive on it, either a URL of some conspiracy site or something like that, or coronavirus, don't disobey lockdown, or something like that, Where are we now? Splendid says, you were a republic 20 years, of course. You were a republic for 20 years, didn't work out. That's right, it was under Oliver Cromwell, High Chancellor Cromwell. They cut the king's head off, didn't they? Well, it goes to show, right? You join the Illuminati. I don't know what King Charles I. I'm not sure whether what his bloodline was, but I know that if you join the Illuminati, you do end up dead sometimes as part of the agenda. Look at the Romanovs, the Russian royal family, part of the Habsburg bloodline. They were actually related, very close relatives of the House of Windsor. When it became necessary for them to be disposed of as part of the agenda, they were disposed of. In fact, when they found the bodies, it took them almost 90 years to find the bodies. They used Prince Philip's DNA to test to see how closely he was related to Prince Alexei. I had to research all this actually for my new novel, The Obscurati Chronicles. Onslow says, Ben, do you listen to Roy Potter? He seems to have an insight on US goings on YouTube. No, I don't, Onslow. I've got a lot of things on my list that I need to look at, and I won't have time to look at them all, but I'll check him out. Lisa says, personally, I don't believe in any monarchy. We just need communities running themselves by the people, all separate and not ruled by one. Lisa, that might actually be the solution. That might be the reality. That might be the way forward. Steve071 says, Capel Green, Ben, any updates? Yes, Capel Green is still in post-production. I'm in touch with all the people involved, and it's still an ongoing project. It is not going away. So the lockdown obviously has slowed things down. But I mean, the lockdown's not been that bad because basically all the footage is in the can now. I mean, they don't have to do any more filming. So they can work through the lockdown. Nihilist Lives Matter said, lizards go home. Hashtag lizards lives matters. Splendid isolation. My ex-girlfriend is very much in favour of the monarchy. Oh, really? Well, maybe, would she be, is that the monarchy generally or the Queen herself? Because there's two different issues here. Whether this country should have a king or queen, or whether the kings or queens we've had are actually legitimate kings or queens. Tink123, hello, how are you? Says it's quoting QAnon. Okay, there will come a time when these people can no longer walk the streets. Q. I bloody hope so. I want to see them arrested. And carries on. Well, 19 blocks of protesters have all descended on the mayor of New York's house, demanding his resignation. Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, I mean, this is the kind of thing where I don't know who's the mayor of New York now, but it needs to be sorted out, or Trump needs to sort it out by arresting these people. And George Soros lives in the United States. He can be arrested. All right. Dalai Lama, we should have more monarchs, then we could hold each other's orbs and brandish each other's scepters. Yeah, Dalai Lama, were you a scriptwriter for the Carry On films? Rabbit says, Ben, I don't know if Ben believes in the QAnon stuff. Yes, I do, Rabbit. This doesn't mean that I believe every single Q post is genuine. There are lots of fake Qs. But there's even more people who claim to have faked Q. It's unbelievable. I've looked at debates on this. I know not everyone lots of people disagree, but I think there's a reality behind QAnon, yeah. Oh, yeah. Tink says George Floyd died of COVID-19. Yeah. Now that'll start a riot, won't it? Lisa says, I believe in QAnon. Pete Pros and no shame. You can laugh all your socks off. I don't give a damn. Yeah, Lisa, I mean, if you look at the Q stuff, it is... The Q stuff has actually come to the surface, I think, because of its credibility. This doesn't mean that every Q post is real. It doesn't mean there aren't fake Q posters, but there's something behind it. I mean, you remember my interview with Duncan Campbell and John White? There's something in that. There really is. Ting says, Royal Mail is to change its name and insignia, or so the rumour says. Well, they've already done that, haven't they, once? If they do it again, I mean, are they going to try and rebrand it again? Oh, God. Splendid says, Floyd had fentanyl and cannabis in his system and heart disease comprising 90% blockage of the left ventricle, 75% blockage of the right. So he was in a bad way, yeah. I mean, that's not, I don't think that's a defense. If you're accused of murder, I don't think that's a defense. You can't say, well, the person was sick anyway and they're going to die. They were going to die in a couple of years anyway. You can't say, so therefore my murder charge is mitigated because of that. But it's obviously he was not in a bad way. He was not in a good way, that guy, no. Rabbit says QAnon is most likely praying medic. I don't know what that means. Tink says Elon is taking the utter piss with Draco engines. P.S. I love you. There's an in-house joke there. Oh, right. Well, you mean a Draco Dragon? Yes, the capsule's called Dragon. Now, apparently, this was because when he once said that he could become a private space entrepreneur, someone sang Puff the Magic Dragon to try and take the mickey out of him. So he decided to call his spacecraft line Dragon as a kind of taking a mickey, you know. Lisa says, Greg Hallett says he's new King John III. I mean, how many king? I think there's only been one King John, which would make him King John II. Or is there another one? I don't know. How many King Johns are there? King John of England. John King of England. There has been the John II of France. There's only been one King John, which means if he is like a English monarch, then he'd be King John he'd be King John the Second, not the Third. But there has been a King John the Second of France, which means if he's also going to be part of he's taking over the Bourbon bloodline as well, would make him King John the Third, Lisa. If indeed, like the original King John, he is King of England and France, because King John, well, as I've just read out, King John, France was actually occupied. Much of France was occupied by England in those days. Diego Rivera. Greg Hallett is the real Richard III. Well, you know, he could test his DNA because Richard III his body was found under a car park in Leicester. I remember that. They tested his DNA, and it is Richard III. Funny enough, like the hunched back was real. Everyone thought that was just propaganda from the Tudors, but he did have like this. I forgot he had osteoporosis of the spine, which gave him his hunched back. He would have been in a lot of pain, actually, that guy. He'd have been chewing the willow bark quite a lot, I imagine. But they reconstructed his face from the skull, and it very closely resembles the paintings that were made of him. Yeah, Lisa, you went to his New Horizons talk. I should look into more about this guy, actually. Dalai Lapa says Greg Hallett looks like a Channel 5 Golden Garden makeover presenter. Orbit 80Y, hello. I can confirm that QAnon is in fact Gary Busey. Oh, there's loads of people. There's Unirock. Is it Unirock who claims to be QAnon, or is he uncovered QAnon? I can't remember. But there are several people who come forward claiming to be QAnon, and they can't all be QAnon because a lot of their stories contradict. It's rather like when you get a crop circle which two different planking teams claim. You know, they can't both be the makers of that crop circle. Either both are lying or one is lying. Rabbit says, I think Hallett also claims some links to Jesus Christ. Now we're getting into the bloody Rennes-le-Chateau stuff, aren't we? I mean, this is like the Da Vinci Code. I mean, are you? I read that Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Is he a part of that? Because the guy behind it, what was his name? Pierre Plantard is dead now, but is he related to Pierre Plantard? That's died down lately, hasn't it? The Rennes-le-Chateau mystery. It's really sort of gone off the tables. It's gone off the tables a little bit. Lisa says, my question has always been, do we need a king? I think their take is we are pawns. You have no choice. We rule you. It's hard to. I don't know, Lisa. I really don't know the answer to that. You may be right. Or maybe a nation does need a monarch, whether even if it's an anarchistic society, it might need a symbolic monarch, just simply for cultural and reasons. I don't know, or part of the national biospirit. It's a question I don't have all the answers to. I really don't. Splendid Isolation says Tony Robinson made a film where they reckon they tracked down the rightful heir to the Plantagenet line to a New Zealand sheep farmer. Oh my god, that's coming down a bit, isn't it? Mind you, I mean, they like the bloodlines. I mean, the Illuminati bloodlines are not confined to the Illuminati. They tracked down the lady who would have been King of France or would have been Queen of France if it wasn't for the revolution. She's working as an estate agent in Bordeaux or something like that. Tink123 says, what do you think of the rumour that Meghan's baby is actually Charles's baby, hence why there's no signed official announcement, and hence she's legged it and will never return to England? I don't know. I mean, little Harrison, Archie Harrison, his name is. I feel the kid himself is. Well, he seems to be half the time he's in Canada, and then his mum goes away and leaves him for like 6 weeks. I mean, you shouldn't do that with a baby of that age. Is it all right if you guys take another quick break? I'll be back shortly. Okay, back shortly. Well, I know I said I'd finish at 3 hours, but what the hell? Where are we now? So I know I said I'd finish at 3 hours, but I was a bit desperate there. The wine goes through you quickly, you see. I don't know about little Archie. I don't know how he's getting on, but I know he's in Canada now with Meghan, but the family are traveling around so much, and Meghan has legged it. Yeah, it could be that Meghan, maybe someone's tipped her off that she may end up like Diana. I don't know. Who knows? I think she should watch her back, definitely. Steve says, Lisa, is he the man who says he can stop another world war and peace is the only future? Oh, that's a conversation Steve's having with Lisa. Apologies. I'll let you get on with it. Diego Rivera says, Prince Charles, King of England. Well, he would actually become Diego Rivera. He would actually become King Charles, wouldn't he? If the Queen is dead, then technically he's already secretly acceded, which would make him King Charles. What is it? Hang on. How are we? How many Charleses have we had? King Charles, the first of England, second of England, King Charles the Third. What's that? Is let's see. All right, he'll be King Charles the Third. In fact, there's actually a film called King Charles the Third, which is about the death of the Queen. Oh, I have to see that. It looks quite good. The Queen is dead. Long live the King. Yeah, he would be King Charles the Third. If the Queen actually is dead, then he has seceded already. He has acceded already. But of course, then it would have to be announced, and he'd have to have a coronation and things like that. Splendid said the concept of our monarchy derives from the divine right of kings. That's correct, Splendid. I suppose that the problem with that, if there is some kind of divine right of kingdom, it's rather like what the Chinese call the mandate of heaven, which means it's not just something you get. You have a kind of noblesse oblige. So, and there's such a thing as fake divine right. Now, if the Windsors are usurpers, and they're people the Illuminati have put on the throne to rule this country unlawfully, then their divine right is a false one. Lisa says, the truth be told, given the normal man on the street, we may, still need to be ruled. Most ain't got a clue. Be careful what we wish for. Well, obviously, Lisa, and you say here, humanity ain't ready. Some of us see and get, but not enough. So until then, we still need whatever. It sounds patronizing, and I'm sorry if it does. But I do believe that a lot of people I know and a lot of people I've seen and the way they behave, no, they're not ready for freedom. I know it sounds arrogant. It sounds like I'm standing over them on my ivory tower saying, well, I'm ready for freedom. But I can't help that. I can't help it if I truly believe that. I can't. This doesn't mean I hate them or anything like that, and I believe they should be dominant. I can't, but I do see that. I mean, I see the way democracy, supposedly the perfect political system. Look how it has been used to create the most intelligently constructed tyranny the world has ever seen. I mean, democracy, we choose our own leaders. It's the perfect government. But then, why is it then that we despise our leaders so much? Why is it the democratic nations have this terrible malaise? Because they all do. They're all suffering from a terrible malaise. There are Congress people and there are MPs whose approval ratings are in single figures. People will vote, and people vote in democracies. They're more likely to vote for negative reasons than positive. So if you live in a democratic country, most people will vote to say, well, I can't stand candidate A, he's disgusting, but candidate B is also disgusting, but I hate him less, so I'm going to vote for candidate B. In fact, a lot of people are saying that now about a lot of people. I know a lot of people on the left are saying that about Joe Biden. They can't they think he's disgusting, but they have to vote him to get Trump out. I mean, it's obviously I think Trump is an exception. He's one of the few exceptions to that rule. But democratic countries where we can supposedly choose our own leaders are ruled by some of the most disgusting people imaginable. They are cruel. They are stupid. They're weak. They're cowardly. They're corrupt. They have every bad aspect of human character you can imagine embodied in the leaders of democratic countries, with very few exceptions. Why is that? Why do these scum keep floating to the top? If we can choose our own leaders, why can we not choose better ones? There's something very wrong with democracy. Something very wrong indeed. It needs to be overhauled. I'm not saying it needs to be replaced by oligarchy, but something needs to be done to change it. Splendid Isolation says, do we understand why our long Parliament Republic didn't last? I've not studied that in detail. I know that there was a civil war. I know that the king got his head cut off. I don't know. I know that eventually the monarchy was restored after I think it was called the interregnum, wasn't it? The interregnum of Cromwell and whoever else was going on. Sometimes that happens. In the case of France, the republic endured. I mean, well, they're on their fifth republic now, I think. They did. Well, they had Napoleon as the emperor for a while. Then they had another republic. They've had 5 different republics. Again, France is a very unstable country. I mean, by the standards of Britain, it's a very unstable country. It was very much a loose cannon in the Cold War. It occupied that undecided point within the Cold War. It was in NATO and then it left NATO. They had a very strong communist party there. It had a very strong far right. It had its own nuclear deterrent. So France was. You see, that's another example. Again, it's a country they actually abolished their monarchy and cut their heads off in 1792. But still, it's never found peace. The Dalai Lama says, "Here, Lisa. IQ tests for voters." I say, "Ooh, that's very, very controversial, Dalai Lama." But I'm not going to tell you that that's a wrong thing. I won't sort of say. I'm not. The instinctive reaction from our sort of pious, liberal, polite society is to say, Dalai Lama, that is disgusting. You must be some kind of evil fascist. But I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to say you're right, but I'm not going to say you're wrong either. I'm going to entertain the idea without necessarily accepting it, as Socrates said. So if that's going to be controversial, I'll tell you. I see people reaching for the unfriend button on Facebook right now, but maybe that's something worth toying around with. I don't know. Rabbit says all Hallett has done is enjoy the attention from his herd. He'll have to do more than that if he wants to bring peace to the world. Well, I mean, that's debatable, Rabbit. I'm sure Lisa will have something to say about that because Lisa has studied Greg Hallett in more detail than I have. But based on what you've said, I'm not going to go along with your position because of what you said. Again, you haven't really made any points, which is your normal style. Tink says Floyd and the cop work for the same nightclub. Yeah. He did drug and weapons run for Peter Strzok's and General Mattis, Deep State. I wonder if he snitched and double-crossed them. There are some strange eventualities with the Floyd case. And one of those is the fact that Chauvin and Floyd knew each other and had worked together in this nightclub on security. I do wonder. I always said they lived in the same city, so it could be a coincidence. But people are saying whether the Floyd death was real or not, I don't know. I mean, from what I've seen, I'm treating it as an act of police brutality, and it was legit. And Chauvin's been arrested legitimately on a charge of murder. Whether or whatever it is, it's being used. As far as the instigators of the global riots are concerned, it's the same result. Videos from the underground. A video of George Floyd taking a white bag out of his back left pocket has been on the net. Gone now. It could be that. I mean, I don't know why he was actually nicked by the police. I mean, was he carrying drugs? That would explain why he was arrested. I mean, there's not much information except you see him on he's sort of like he's on one pavement. I mean, it's weird because the incident takes place at a crossroads. There's a police car parked on the adjacent road. He's on one pavement, and he's sort of like at one point he's in handcuffs. He's sitting on the ground, and then they get up and they try to move him. Then the policemen are trying to take him somewhere, and he's sort of like kicking off. He's trying not to. The next thing you know, he's on the ground by the police car, but that's on the adjacent road. You don't see how he got there. And then you see, of course, Chauvin kneeling on his neck, and he's saying, I can't breathe, and eventually he dies. It's mysterious, I don't know. Diego versus Prince Charles talks to plants. He's one of us. I know a lot of people who talk to plants, people who are into gardening and things like that. Whether it actually works or not, I don't know. I've got a bit of this left. Sevo71. Ben, pineapple on a pizza? Yes, it's lovely. The Hawaiian with the little slices of ham. Beautiful. Lisa says, again, Hallett has never said what he will do for us, just what he's entitled to. He could be sweeping one evil for another until they say something. Don't get me wrong, I just kind of like him. Good answer, Lisa. I mean, you're actually trying to make a point here. So Rabbit has something to reply to now, doesn't he? Stiltskin says, Jimmy fixed it for old Jug ears. Yeah, well, they'd had interacted a few times, didn't they, Charles and Savile? Rabbit says, Prince Charles is what I refer to as intellectually vacant. Well, he's a bit inbred, isn't he? This is why they had to marry him off to Diana and not Camilla, because Camilla's too closely related. They had to dilute the gene pool a little bit with the Stuart bloodline, because Camilla is another Habsburg. So if Charles had been allowed to marry Camilla, it would may have caused some problems in terms of the health of the children, as in like Prince Alexei, the Romanov crown prince. Before he was shot, he would probably have died before he was like 25 anyway, because he had haemophilia. He was actually shot at the age of 13 by the Bolsheviks in Russia in 1918. But that's what happened if you married Camilla. So even though he was in love with Camilla, he had to marry Diana. It was only when years after Diana died that he could finally marry Camilla. Dalai Lama says, typical New Zealander, Lisa. I'm sticking with the Prussian truffles. Are you a New Zealander, Dalai Lama? Do you know Vinnie Eastwood? Yeah. Stop scumbeagery. Stop. That's like scumbeagery. We must stop scumbeagery. I love the way the New Zealanders talk. Oh, that's Vinnie Eastwood. He's a dad now. He's had a kid. Good luck to him, I say. I've been on his show, actually. I like his show. And he's been on mine. He's good. I like Vinnie. Splendid said, Prince Charles is also a member of the same cult that Princess Grace was in before she met a violent and end down the side of a mountain hill. That's right, wasn't it? Again, car crash. It seems to be the popular way they get rid of people in the royals. I mean, the Monaco bloodline is... I forgot who was it who talked about the Monaco bloodline? I can't remember. I mean, Monaco's a tiny little... It's a microstate embedded in the coast of southern France, but it has like it's a principality. It's ruled by a prince, and he married Grace Kelly, the actress. She became Princess Grace, but then she met with a sudden and mysterious car crash and died. Lisa says, "Oh, Ben, you're a bit naive. Sometimes I feel, but only with the most beautiful heart and the way you speak about the royals like they are, like us. It's all engineered, but I love you for seeing otherwise." Well, thanks, Lisa. We do disagree on a few things, but we can do it. We can do it amiably, which is quite unusual in this day and age, isn't it? Steve says, SpaceX are making the satellites less visible because some astronomers are moaning. So far, it's only 1 out of 422 deployed, except many more launches, tens of thousands of the big 260-kilogram satellites. Well, I hope I get to see them before they make them completely invisible. I saw the bloody astronomers. Professor Brian Cox could go and do what, I don't know, he can go and, patronize Dara O'Brien. He does that anyway, though, doesn't he? Bloody hell, guys. I'm getting tired. I'm going to de-troll and call it a night. I'm sorry about that, but I'm getting tired now. Let's go back up a bit. I'm really sorry because I know you guys have left more comments. But I'm getting tired now. I'm sorry. Is it possible you could hold the comments for another time? Because there's so many here. I could go on all night. I'm just going to do a de-troll now. Stiltskin says, have I sold many Roswell books? Yes, quite a few. They seem to be quite popular. Steve says about the Dreaming Sources group. I've had some interest in it. Of course, we can't meet up, can we? Hugo Roon says, Ben, please stop with that 2 + 2 = 5 line. It's boring. Well, I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, Hugo. If you can think of a better analogy, please let me know, and I'll use that instead. I could probably think of other versions of it. It's just the one Orwell uses, which I seem to just seem to be quite applicable to many situations. All right, just going to carry on here. Oh, there's some great questions. There's some great comments here, but there's just so many, and I've been going for 3 hours and 10 minutes. Okay, just de-trolling now. You guys have been brilliant. It's been a fantastic live stream, one of the best ever. Mr. MT has turned up. Ben, I feel like I need to apologise for being white this week. Oh, blimey, it's awful, isn't it? It's bloody awful. The people seeing people kneel down. It's just disgusting. Oh, blimey. I'd love to. Oh, Ravenhill says. So I'm skipping a few. There were some great questions here. Just out of curiosity, do you get on with your Muslim housemates, or would you rather have someone else's housemates? Best wishes. I get on with them absolutely fine. Ahmed and Hassan are great. I mean, they are. To be honest, we do stay out of each other's way a bit. We're not like chummy. We're not like family type housemates, but they're good. They're good guys. They're cool guys. I've been living with them since 2011, so we have to get on. You know. Oh, Dalai Lama says cold wine numbs his nipples. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I don't want to know about your nipples. Where are we now? Oh, I wish I could carry on. I'm sorry. Any trolls? I feel bad doing this because you guys are like, have left some really good comments. But I'll do another live stream soon. It's just like, there's still 45 people watching. My live streams are actually getting more popular. It's been a good one. It's been one of the longest. Oh, dear. Can any of you remember these questions for the next live stream, or put them in? Just transfer them to the recording. Just put them into the comments box on the recording. Cosmic Claire's there. Hi, how you doing? Cosmic Claire. I'm sorry, I'm about to finish, Claire. Can you put them into the recording? I'll put them into the comments section on the recording. Could you do that? Because I'd love to answer some more of your questions. I really do. Because I'm doing in a few weeks, in a couple of weeks, I'll be doing, maybe 2 weeks time, I'll be doing another comments reply video. I'm doing them, and Fenlander's here too. Oh dear. Sorry to disappoint you guys. Really am. Night, Steve. Night, Lisa. Oh, here we go. I'm just getting rid of trolls. Well, actually, there aren't any trolls, but I do have to check them because I publish the comments. So I do get, because otherwise the trolls posts will be in the comments section. I don't want them there. There's still a number of people I don't allow to comment on my videos. It's got nothing to do with their beliefs, nothing at all. It's to do with their conduct. Bloody hell! My goodness me. Just trying to get through these all. It's been fun, hasn't it? I mean, it's been a dramatic week. It's been a very dramatic week in politics, especially in America. But of course, it's spread beyond the United States because the US is still a very influential nation, not as influential as it once was. I wouldn't say it's like a superpower in the same way it used to be. It's still a very major world player, and it's of course, what happens in the US affects the rest of the world a lot. Very often does. For this reason, Lisa, night, Lisa. Sweet, thanks, Steve. Night. Oops. Night, Dalai Lama. Thanks for joining us. Night, Splendid Isolation. Oh, nice, Cosmic Claire. Take care. Sorry, Edwardian lady couldn't get here this evening, but I'm sure I'll catch up with her on Facebook. Alien Biker, hello. 69 Phuket. War Babe in 1951. Oh, you're late. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'll be doing another live stream at some point. Maybe I'll do another live stream about Mage. Oh, but will that make it up to you? Night, David. Thanks for joining. Night, Paul. Night, Fenlander. Thanks very much for taking part in this Panwo TV live stream. A Week in America, I've called it. And so don't remember, the recording will be available. You can always transfer your live chat comments to the normal comment underneath. If you want me to answer them, I will. Take care, guys. See ya.